Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the brief delay there. We were having some technical difficulties getting everybody into the same Zoom room. Tonight, as we have for the duration of this pandemic, we are conducting our monthly March Borough Council meeting using the Zoom webinar platform to ensure the health and safety of the public, staff, and council. We are glad you have joined us tonight virtually for this meeting. Participants attending tonight's meeting may provide public comment during the public participation portion of the meeting, as well as the public hearing portion of the meeting. During these portions of the agenda, please raise your hand and our staff will unmute your microphone, announce your name, and you will then be able to ask your question or make your comments. We will have 2 public comment periods tonight, one towards the beginning and one towards the end. With that, thank you again for joining us tonight. We now will begin our March monthly Borough Council meeting. And with that, we will start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America,
and to the
republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
And with that, Mr. Manager, our roll call.
Ms. Berkeley.
Present.
Mr. Dalton. I see him.
Mr. Dalton, you're on mute.
Ms. Dugan.
Yeah, my mic wasn't plugged in. I'm here.
Ms. Dugan.
Here.
Mr. Kirkner.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Present.
Mr. Soto. Mr. Weiss.
Sorry, here.
Greenwald.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Here.
Manager, assistant manager, lieutenant, and the solicitor are all here. You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, Gene. Our North Ward Representative Edwin Soto was not able to join us tonight for family issues, so just letting everyone know that. With that, next item on our agenda is our February regular meeting minutes. Any questions, comments, or corrections to the February meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the February minutes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Weiss, second by Ms. Berkeley. Questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Manager, do we have any presentations tonight?
None for tonight, sir.
Okay. With that, we'll open the first round of public participation. Any members of the public wishing to make any comments tonight, please raise your hand and staff will acknowledge you and unmute you, or announce you so you can unmute yourself and you can make comment towards council. We ask that you limit all comments to 3 minutes or less.
Mr. Ponton, I'm going to unmute your microphone, sir.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. So Tim Ponton, 509 South Street, up on the north side, and I'd like to talk about the proposed disc golf course, if that's okay. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a number of concerns, and ultimately the request is for council to deny the request for the golf course. Just a number of points I do want to go over. I'll try to make it quick as best I can. I've been up in this area in the cul-de-sac on South Street. So putting this course in, it's directly next to my house. So lots of concerns. First concern really is the wildlife that exists out in the community, the fox, rabbit, groundhog, deer, birds, lots going on. So I just want to make sure that, that's being recognized. Obviously, we like the peace and quiet and don't want to disturb the natural habitat that exists out there. Second point is we have a lot of parking issues up on the north side. Directly behind me, even though I'm in a single on the cul-de-sac, the townhomes, the court alleges, are plagued with parking issues that tend to come up. The streets are very narrow, and anytime there's any activity in the area, it tends to create even more issues for the neighborhood. A lot of people tend to park in the cul-de-sac when they can. So obviously concerned about should we add the disc golf course, what that's going to mean to just additional traffic and issues, if you will. I want to share a story. This past Saturday morning, I was out in my yard about 10 o'clock, and I heard a bang, a thud come from across the cul-de-sac, only to look over and see my neighbor, Kristen Davis, who's right across the street in the cul-de-sac. Her house got hit with a disc, right? So the next thing you know, there's a person in her yard retrieving the disc. They walk back out to a group of people who I can only imagine are the people who are actually organizing this disc golf. They can then continue to survey the land. Of course, they had a dog off leash, so it's just and if the event organizers are already hitting houses and walking around in the community with the dog off leash, what's going to happen when we open this up, to the broader group that's going to bring people to the area? I also wanted to point out a note to council. In 2010, or the Phoenixville YMCA did have a disc golf course. It only lasted 2 years. It was removed due to trash and beer bottles in the area. I also wanted to ask council about the area, the field that is next to my house. From what I understand, 40 to 50 years ago, Route 113 was supposed to come through there. So I think there's some technical questions about actually who owns that property. I think it goes from my property to borough property to Pico or the state, and then back to borough property. I even think St. Mary's itself owns a piece. So I just want to make sure that from a legality perspective, has the borough reviewed those policies and make sure all of the parties have checked the box and are informed or are okay with the decision. And then personally, Kristen, who's right across from me in the cul-de-sac, and myself have 2 large dogs. It's going to be an issue. There's going to be people in our properties, just like there was the other day. There's just no way to control that. So I just wanted to point that out. The hardship that is going to come to us because of this should be something that the borough takes into consideration. And then if someone comes on my property, if there's an issue, who's responsible, right? Parking issues are definitely a challenge. I haven't seen any kind of formal proposal. I've been out there looking for something. It seems like it's informal at this point, but I would love to know, is there some kind of formal document, and all these kind of Q&As have been covered? I don't believe there is. That kind of summarizes what I really wanted to talk about. I did want to thank Richard. Richard had reached out to me about a month ago and kind of raised awareness of what was going on. So thank you for Richard for the information. We have also started to walk through the neighborhood and get people a little bit more informed. We did put together a petition. We have 40 signatures so far of residents in this area who are against the creation or the building of the disc golf course. So that's about all I had. Thank you.
Jess, I'm going to allow you to talk. I've unmuted your mic.
Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for the time. My name is Jessica Capistrant. I'm the President and CEO of the Phoenixville Regional Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to make a comment tonight, as I know that, the open air approval or denial will be this evening. I just wanted to share that, I think the borough last year was ahead of the game and very proactive and progressive to do what they did in terms of setting up the open air concept for the downtown. And I just want to assure you and implore you to continue with that decision and ensure you that had that not occurred, we would be facing certainly more vacancy in the downtown, if not already very shortly. That was an absolute game changer for our community. It not only, certainly helped the businesses, it actually introduced a number of people in the region to Phoenixville, as we were one of the only communities to be doing it. So I think there's a lot of aspects there to consider. The second piece is, of course, considering the vote tonight for 2021, again, just want to highly encourage that this is approved. I have had a number of one-on-one conversations, documented hours and hours of conversations, in fact, with the business owners in the downtown and retail and restaurants predominantly, of course. And the overwhelming response consistently was that they wanted this program back. And they were very happy actually to hear of the adjustment Friday to Sunday. They feel that that's appropriate, and that Thursday night and opening up that Friday morning certainly will actually also help them with deliveries. So that's wonderful. It's a wonderful adjustment. And that these weekends are definitively going to be make or break. We are all hopeful, right, about this vaccine. But the fact remains that this county has a couple thousand at best. And by the way, I would think we probably all know there's been a number of weeks we've received 0 first dose vaccines. So I don't think we can, with any absolute certainty, assume that there's going to be major floodgates opening, in the spring and summer for sure when it comes to the indoor dining capacity. And that's really what we're talking about here, right? I mean, they can't, retailers and particularly restaurants with the limitations, they are just not going to be able to succeed with indoor dining only. And a number of restaurants did assure us of that. If this is not something that comes back, they're going to be facing some real financial challenges. And they're interested in it coming back ASAP. I'm sure this week a number of people are thinking, boy, I wish that was happening this weekend. But everybody's appreciative of the borough and spoke well of one another in terms of things that people did to get people out and to seat people safely. And I think it was a winner, and I think we need it again. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. So I did prepare a document a number of weeks back that just had general feedback that was shared with President Ewald. If that needs to be referenced at any point in time. But again, the consistency was, we want the program back. We're thrilled that it's Friday through Sunday, and we would love to have it all spring, all summer, and through the fall to a reasonable time. So again, we really appreciate the consideration. This borough has done incredible things to support the business community, and this would certainly be another way to do it. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jess.
And bear with me, everyone. I have to turn off one person's mic and turn on the next, so there's a small lag. I apologize. Ms. Davis, your mic's about to be turned on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Kristen Davis. I'm at 512 South Street, so I back directly up to Reservoir Park. Tim Ponton, who spoke before, is my neighbor directly across the street, so our properties directly border the field that's in question for the proposed disc golf course. I echo all of Tim's concerns, obviously, so you can, just sort of duplicate those, as well as, Reservoir Park itself is pretty much in a state of disrepair in most of its areas. The community garden, the dog park, they're struggling. Photos on a daily basis of just the lack of upkeep. And so obviously our concern is who's going to really ensure, if something like this were actually to go in, that this just doesn't become another eyesore back there. Backing up to the park itself has its challenges. There is no gate of any sort that blocks that park off after dark. And, you know, for years and years, as any park would have, there's going to be people that sneak back there and use it for illicit purposes. You know, you build something else that draws people up there and brings more and more attention to this one piece of, you know, sort of natural habitat that's back there. It's just asking for more of that, which becomes, you know, a huge nuisance for me, for Tim, and for other people in this neighborhood. The parking in our cul-de-sac, I mean, who wouldn't? You can just literally walk right across our lawn and go right into the disc golf course, which people do now. I mean, people cut right across property all the time, but it's just going to increase that 100-fold once there's a reason to go there. That's beyond just sort of walking down towards the river. So, you know, big concerns there. Again, my house was the one that was hit by the people who were walking around this weekend. You know, did anybody kind of stop over and talk? No, you know, they just kept going with their dog that, again, was off leash. I have 2 large dogs. You know, one of my dogs is an escape artist. He can vault a 5-foot fence. And I struggle as it is to keep him where he is. I am, you know, sitting here wondering, like, what's going to happen when you have 50 people up here, all out here on a sunny day with their dogs running around, and everybody's going to think it's a great amenity. And, you know, God bless it, Phoenixville, like, you build something, they come, you know, they go out and they use their amenities and want to be with their neighbors and friends and hanging out. And that's fantastic. Not in my backyard. I just don't know who is going to be responsible for sort of maintaining any damage, anything that happens. You know, those discs are going to come flying into our property, and then we have people hopping fences and coming around onto our property at what cost? And then we're a nuisance to the police when we're calling because we can't patrol it ourselves. You know, we've seen sort of just the very bare minimum of a plan for this, and it says that there's a $15,000 proposed budget to install this. I scratch my head and wonder how this field would be made into any type of a gaming course, and all the way back towards Reservoir Park and everything with that type of a budget. This field is truly a natural habitat for a lot of animals. I mean, herds of deer, tons of foxes, tons of groundhogs. It's full of lumpy holes and rocks. And, you know, I watch people out there all the time just struggling to walk across it. It seems like it would be far more of an undertaking than that. And again, on multiple entities' ownership of these pieces of property. You know, right now, every week or so, the borough or someone comes out and sort of haphazardly mows it. And, you know, again, it chops down this habitat for the animals. And, you know, I get snakes and I get mice and I get poison ivy and all types of lovely things that get kicked up by all of this mowing here. Again, it's just, it seems far-fetched that this $15,000 budget is going to make this, you know, the type of amenity that's going to not be simply an eyesore with some metal baskets hanging out in it. We just really need more information. We need a well thought out plan. And as the homeowners, you know, be consulted on things like this that really directly affect our property value. And that's what it comes down to. You know, we're in a beautiful spot and we chose this for a reason. We just need more information. That's pretty much what I had to contribute at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Ms. Chico, I'm going to turn on your microphone.
Hi, yes, I'm Monique Chico. I'm at 508 South Street, and my property adjoins the Reservoir Park in the back of my property. I echo everything that both Kristen and Tim have said prior. So if that could be made on record. As it is right now, we have lots of folks that have dogs unleashed back here. And I really think that this would just add to everything with having more people back here, and also ownership of the land that is proposed to be used. Wondering if that has been looked into and researched. And the damage to people jumping my fence to get the discs and whatever, that's a really big concern for me. You know, I have people now that I had to have my fence repaired because people as it is right now that we're coming into the garden area, were bending my fence up to get their dogs that were unleashed from my property. And their dogs were defecating on my property and I have a fenced in area. And I, look at this day in and day out. So, I really think that the money could be used to clean up the community garden back here. It's really an eyesore. And I don't think if members of council took a field trip back here to look at this, I think you guys would all really agree that it's a horrible, horrible sight. So I'm really concerned about having more people, more traffic, parking issues. I would think that there would also be a security issue for the reservoir. There were people back here last summer. We always have people dumping things back here. There's a lot of activity that goes on at night. Again, there's no gate to keep people out. I see people here at all hours of the night that shouldn't be here. So I'm very concerned about having more and more traffic back here. And also, we already have an increase in traffic with the new rec center that's being built. So I would hope that members of council would take this into consideration and not go through with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chico.
Thanks.
Chris Reckman, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm going to turn on the microphone.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live above Sage Restaurant, downtown Phoenixville, and we're a building of 10 units, 2 being the restaurant, 8 homeowner units above. And last year when they closed the street, I'm all for open air. I'm all for supporting our restaurants. I think it's very important, but I also honestly didn't care to have our parking spaces taken away. I know we're one of the only homeowner owned driveways on Bridge Street. The lot was, I think it's Mill Street lot. It's across from the new brewery down there. On Main Street was the proposed option for us to park at, but I find multiple times coming home from work, that lot's full and I have nowhere to park. So I was just going to see if the city could come to a compromise with us and maybe close the street to where we can get to our parking spaces, but still allow open air. I love to compromise. I just don't think it doesn't work. I don't feel safe walking at night from that lot home with groceries, but I am willing to compromise. So if you guys could consider some sort of solution, we would love that. Also with the open air, I'm sure it'll go through. I think it's great. I would like see if someone could monitor the activity on the street. We often have people within 6 feet of our door in the front. So no one's really monitoring that. But also there's a lot of, I don't know how to say it. There are people loitering behind our building. So there's urination, sexual activity, people trying to get in our back door. It happens on and off, but not as much as it does when the street's closed. So if they do the open air, which I'm sure you will, if there could be someone monitoring the streets better. Last year we stepped out our front door and there was literally a group of 10 people, no mask, loitering in front of the door on the bench. So just I just really want to compromise. I don't think the open air should be canceled, but I think there should be a compromise and just a discussion with the homeowners to see if we can meet in the middle. But that's it. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Simmons, I'm going to allow you to talk. Turn on your microphone.
Thanks. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I just wanted to share some thoughts and opinions about the disc golf course proposal in favor of it. as a resident of Phoenixville for 25 plus years, coming through the schooling system, and now purchasing my first home in the borough. I played disc golf over the past 3 or 4 years, and it is a growing sport. There are very few recreational activities that have such a high benefit to cost ratio for disc golf. In terms of Reservoir Park, we all, I think, realize that that park needs a facelift. And if you were to ask Kerr Park in Downingtown, course that I play at frequently, the impact that that's had to their course and to their park, you'd hear nothing but positive things. There actually was vandalism issues at the park prior to the disc golf course being installed. Since then, on Monday nights, the borough in Downingtown has allowed us to do glow rounds at night. And as a result, there hasn't been any vandalism since, as we're now out there essentially deterring vandalism. And contrary to what others might have said, disc golfers in general hold much pride for the courses that they play on. And as far as I've seen in every circumstance, disc golf courses around the area tend to be some of the most pristine sections of the park. And then just lastly, in terms of a need for the sport, if you were to look at a map of the disc golf courses in southeastern Pennsylvania, you'd see one out in Fairmount Park, Philadelphia. There's one down in Kennett Square. There's one that was just put in 3 years ago in Downingtown, and the others would be up at French Creek State Park. Phoenixville is kind of right in the middle of that pocket where there are no disc golf courses anywhere on the main line. It would bring in traffic, and after all, that is kind of the point of the park, to have people coming out for recreational activity. It's a sport that can be played by really anyone, including handicapped. It's environmentally sound sport. It can be played year round. There are people at the Downingtown course that I play most frequently there every single day, even in the snow. There's not many other activities that you will find people utilizing parks for in the winter. So those are my thoughts. I just kind of wanted to share and let you guys know from the other perspective, things that you should be considering in favor of the disc golf course. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. Mike Kajak, I'm going to turn on your microphone.
Good evening. I'd like to speak on behalf of the 34 South Main Street project. I'm calling in regards to 228 Bridge Street. I'm very concerned about the safety and the wellness of the individuals that are going to be living in this facility. There was extensive phone calls on planning and zoning, referring to it as veteran housing. So I think it's appropriate to still refer to it as such in respect to fair market housing. I mean, no disrespect in saying such. I just don't believe that the appropriate measures are being in play here, and simple measures and comparisons to such properties like the Whitehall Inn. There's no live-in superintendent. There's no nursing staff. There's no real regard to the wellness of day-to-day behaviors and interactions that these individuals are going to be having as such in a 390 square foot space. I also believe that the price point that the property owner is going to be charging is quite, I guess, disrespectful to the veterans and their pensions. In doing comparison with 9 other commercial properties in Phoenixville, from Phoenix Village, Burn Lofts, The Point, Independence Crossing, Knoll Apartments, Walnut Mill Lofts, 1-bedroom apartments, the price per square foot divided by the monthly price, the average is $1.91 per square foot. Now, 383 square feet by $1,100 per month, as said by Sean Lyons, the developer behind this project, who recently sold PRG to a Brooklyn-based entity, which is no longer founded or operational in Pennsylvania. the $383 or 383 square feet by $1,100 is $2.87 per square foot. That's 90 cents more per square foot than the top 1-bedroom apartments that are operating in town with pools, gyms, community centers. I just really hope that we don't look back on this and that we made the wrong decision in approving this. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Palmer, I'm going to activate your microphone.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Palmer, and I am one of the organizers of the disc golf course. Heard the concern of the neighbors and would love to meet with them regarding the design. I don't agree with many of the concerns, and many of the concerns that they did bring up are in the addressed in the proposal. My understanding is there's going to be 100 additional parking spots when the community center comes in, so that should alleviate any parking on their cul-de-sac, which should be frowned upon for use of the park anyway. Also, the wildlife, I believe we're using about 20% of the park when you actually factor in the full use of the course, whereas all the wooded area all the way down to the river is untouched, and that would be generally where most of the wildlife is gonna live. As far as a sport, you couldn't ask for a more low impact sport with participants that really do care about the environment and in general, anecdotally are very good stewards of a park. So what you're doing is by bringing in a more structured recreational opportunity is you're alleviating those security concerns. You're alleviating some of the upkeep because volunteers are going to want to keep that disc golf course in prime shape. And it is really a low impact thing that could happen there where, it could be something much more onerous to the neighbors, like a lit baseball field or something where it is a park, it's going to be used, something's going to happen. So this is a pretty low impact, fun for everyone sport. I encourage council to approve the disc golf course to help revitalize an underutilized park. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go on to Becky McCarran. I see that Kristen has raised her hand again. She has already spoken once, so I'm going to try to get to those folks who haven't heard from yet.
Hi, this is Becky McCarran. I wanted to speak to the Veterans Apartment Center being proposed. I have a couple of concerns. I do think that it's probably something that's needed here in Phoenixville, but quite frankly, I'm appalled at the lack of ADA accessibility for an older generation. There's no elevators. You really only have accessibility on the first floor. There is a loft, which I don't know. Do they expect them to use that as a bedroom? Again, an elderly person would want their bedroom on the first floor. I could see this as something that would be a great asset to veterans, maybe building something that's really more handicap accessible for them with more square footage and a lower price, maybe even something on a sliding scale fee basis, because certainly veterans do not have large incomes and I don't think they'd be able to afford $1,100 a month and still be able to eat. But, I could see this as something that could grow into maybe having shuttle buses to and from downtown on Fridays and Saturdays during special events. It could be something that's workable, but the floor plans they're horrible. For an elderly person, they're horrible. They're not workable and the price is too high. So I don't know if there's some alternative plans that they can propose that might meet the elderly's needs better than what they've got. That's about all I had to say.
Thank you.
Ma'am. Eric Alexander, I'm going to turn on your microphone.
Hello, how's everybody doing tonight? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I live at the corner. I live at 502 South Street in the ranch house. And I'm a combat veteran as well. And since they passed the laws that people can buy mortars and shoot them off at any time, you can imagine as a combat vet that just wreaks havoc on me, much less seeing a disc thrown in my yard and I actually walking into my backyard and seeing somebody in my backyard. I don't think that situation would go very well. I also think that if you're going to spend money, you need to clean up the garden area and do some work to the pavilion before you even think about putting a golf course there. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, the pavilion is dilapidated, looks like crap. The garden's the same way. It's doing nothing for the community as far as adding value to our properties, or even it's an eyesore. So if you're going to build a park, a disc golf course, you're going to have to build a wall that's high enough behind our fences that no disc will come in our yards. And I'm just wondering if you guys are prepared to do that. I mean, I'm also worried about the parking. I don't want people parking in front of my house, walking across my lawn. I already have 2 do not trespass signs on my property. You know, you guys need to think about us homeowners over here. You know, it's not just about, hey, let's just throw up a Frisbee golf course. That'd be cool. Let's take care of the things we have already, such as a dog park that's dilapidated and it's horrible. It's like a mud field. You know, and then you go look at the pavilion and it's just looks like it's 80 years old. No one has ever done anything to it, you know. I think we need to reconsider where we're going to do things at, and let's take care of the things we have in place already before we move forward to do anything else. Okay? That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander.
You're welcome.
Ms. Davis, I'm going to turn your microphone back on.
Thank you. Yeah, I did just drop a comment in the Q&A, and it was in regards to, you know, the commentary about, you know, a disc golf course reducing crime or reducing, you know, negative traffic back there. And I couldn't disagree more. I mean, the people who are here during the day in the park are using it the proper way, you know, for the most part. And that doesn't stop anybody that comes in here all the time after dark. And then the commentary of, you know, then we're now allowed to use it as a glow golf course and have after dark events, et cetera. And that's a major concern of ours, is, are people going to be out there at all hours of the night? You know, it's disturbing the peace, and it's not going to be pleasant for anybody here that lives here if we have people out there at all hours of the night playing glow things out, you know, out in the field. So it just sort of proved our point of you know, it's just not going to be a desirable amenity for the people who literally live right on the course. So that's pretty much all I had to add to that. Thank you for reopening that.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public participation for this round?
Hold on, John. I'm trying to shuffle the deck here and lower some hands so I know who's next. Bear with me.
Ah, got it.
All right, so we have 2 folks who've spoken previously and 1 who hasn't. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the microphone for Chris Kalicki when you are ready.
Hello, my name's Chris Kalicki. I live in the borough on Washington Avenue, and I own a business on Church Street. I wanted to speak regarding the proposed development of 34 Main Street on the corner of Main and Church. And I did send letters to members of Borough Council also, but I just wanted to reiterate, there were a lot of points brought up previously that I feel went unanswered. I did want to just just review. The ADA apartment that's proposed on the first floor, the developer had previously said that he was going to be putting a lift outside of the building. And that, as far as I know, has not been HARB approved. So I wanted to see if anyone had any information on that. It was also stated previously, he needs 2 means of egress. He was going to use the area behind the building between the neighbor, and a statement was made by the neighbor that the developer does not have the right of way to use that area. So that means that the ADA apartment would not have 2 means of egress. The number of trash and recycling toters that the developer is proposing, which I believe he had room for 22 or 23 there, isn't sufficient for the proposed number of apartments. As far as I know, in the Phoenixville borough, every living unit needs to have 1 trash and 1 recycling. So for 23 units, he should have 46 toters. Doesn't have room for that in the building. Also planning on storing the toters in a room with a shared wall to the neighbor's, which is a residential house. As someone who has previously lived in a house with shared walls, I feel that is totally inappropriate, between smells coming through because old buildings they waft through. That's going to be horrendous for the neighbor. Also, I have to wonder about the safety of that as well. The biggest concern, and this is a huge concern that many individuals in the neighborhood have, the neighborhood cannot take any more strain on the parking situation. As far as closing down Bridge Street for open air, that's great for the businesses, but it is horrendous for us who are around the corner because the traffic is increased, the parking is increased. We know the businesses need it, so we're willing to put up with that because we know that they're struggling right now. But then if you do this development, you put in 23 apartments, the traffic and the congestion and the parking is going to be horrendous. So I really hope that Borough Council can think about what can make this development an asset to the community instead of, it's going to be great for the developer. He's going to make a ton of money this way, but really it's going to be detrimental to the community. And I hope you really take that into account. Thank you so much.
Welcome, thank you. Mr. McLaughlin, Michael McLaughlin, I'm going to turn on your microphone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, I just wanted to just introduce myself. I've been a resident of Phoenixville for almost 22 years now. I raised 4 children in Phoenixville. Consider myself a responsible resident. And I just wanted to say I'm in favor of a disc golf course. I have casually played disc golf over many years of my life. And I think if there was a local course, it would be really nice. I enjoy the sport, and it, as Todd Palmer pointed out, it is a very low impact sport. And I'd also be happy to meet with any of the local residents who have concerns about the people. There's also, I'd like to say the people that I played with have been, very responsible people. I agree with what Todd said about reducing security risks, having, responsible disc golfing teams coming through the park and playing. It would help to reduce any, anybody that are up to no good. I'd also agree with what Todd was saying about, wildlife in the park. The wildlife would be down in the wooded areas, and so I don't think we'd be bothering them. And I think it would help to revitalize an underutilized park. So I just wanted to make my point and say that I'm in favor of putting in a golf course. And I think it would overall, improve the usage of the park and, revitalize it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chico, I'm going to turn your microphone back on.
Yes, thank you for readdressing me. I appreciate it. I just wanted to mention again and emphasize and also question who and what land is actually being looked at in obtaining and promoting this golf course. And also the land, because the land had actually been in my family many years ago. And I would like members of council to look into that. And if someone on council could be in touch with me, I would appreciate it. And also, with respect to the golf course out back, what was actually the plan with going with the golf course? Because from the map that I had seen just briefly, and I don't have details, so I would really appreciate details of this. As Tim had mentioned, it looks as though there's a hole right directly in back of my yard, directly in the middle, straight out back. So what is actually the plan for the garden? Is this golf course going through the garden? Is it going around the garden? What is actually the plan of council? But I would really appreciate someone contacting me about the land and what land specifically is being used in the South Street cul-de-sac and what is being looked at. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chico. Mr. Alexander, I'm going to turn your microphone on again. And just a reminder, this is your opportunity to express your concerns to council. They do hear your questions, but they don't particularly answer them during public participation.
Good evening again. I have a main concern for the park of the pavilion parking area over there. I have personally witnessed more than one drug deal go down. I know the police go through there every once in a while, but it's not upkept by any means. I think if anything, they should close that off with a fence, not let anybody back there until there is either a camera put in or there's constant supervision. You guys don't realize this because you don't live here, but it goes on nonstop. It's like I guess the known place that people can get away with doing drug deals. I've witnessed people going and dropping off bags into the garden area and leaving, and I've watched people come from another vehicle and go and pick up and go in their car and go away. This is not acceptable as a homeowner in Phoenixville. I understand you guys want to put a Frisbee golf course in here, but who is going to maintain it? Who is going to be responsible for any accidents that happen? You know, I don't know if you guys have thought about this or not, but you know, it's a very concerning situation here. We bought these houses with intentions because we know originally the farmer many years ago that owned all this property, that gave you that land back there, that built the 3 houses, one of them I live in for his kids. We live here, and you know, I heard the one guy say that the park's underutilized. There's so many fields across the street from me, plus the basketball court and the playground area. This park is not underutilized. This place behind me where the garden is, it's not considered a park. So you guys really need to think about this, and please take us into consideration as homeowners. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. John, at this time, I don't see any additional hands raised.
Thank you, Jen. We will have a second round of public participation towards the end of the meeting. So if there are no other members of the public wishing to make any comment at this time, we will move on with our agenda. Just giving it an extra moment just in case. Okay. With that, we will move into communications.
We have a raised hand. I'm sorry, hold on.
Okay.
Mr. Kajak.
All right, I have Tracy Tackett on speakerphone on my phone. She'd like to speak. Tracy, you're on.
Hi. Well. Hi, can you hear me? This is Tracy Tackett.
We can hear you, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thanks. I just wanted to comment on the proposed development up at the corner of Church and Main. Just to reiterate the letter that we sent expressing concern about the number of dwelling units that are proposed in that building. The fact that the trash has not been demonstrated to be acceptable to accommodate the number of units, that there's not adequate common space for that number of units, and that the parking as proposed in the resolution just does not seem acceptable. And I hope that Borough Council will postpone any action on this. In particular, in the resolution, the language that talks about, you know, the plan has to comply with the zoning ordinance or the applicant obtain any required variances. That really should get resolved before this development is approved. And the solid waste is just unacceptable. And this mystery 23 parking spaces that the residents are going to have to be responsible for, and there's no indication where those are. It's all just inadequate, and we just ask that this not be approved tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tackett. Mr. Kajak. At this time, I have no further hands raised. Mr. Ewald.
Okay, thank you, Jen. With that, we'll now move into communications and council participation. Any members of council wishing to bring us up to speed on anything? Mr. Kirkner.
Yes, Mr. Ewald, if I may, thank you. I just want to clear up something that was brought up a number of times during public participation with regard to ownership of the parcel of land on, I guess it's off Dayton Street there, where the disc golf course, some parts of the disc golf course would be constructed. That is borough-owned land. As we only have jurisdiction over our own property. We can't put things on, the borough cannot put things on property that does not belong to it. That land was given to the borough in 2002 or 2003 when THP Properties came in after THP bought the old Chico family farm, and THP Property deeded that land to the borough specifically for parks and recreation use. It has been the intent for some time to eventually put a softball field there. That's an idea. It's an idea at best at this point. There just hasn't been enough resources to go forward with that. But with the question about the ownership of the property is, it's not a question. The borough owns that land outright, and the borough took ownership of that land from the developer, the people who built the ledges for recreational use at a later date to be determined. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Rich. I always appreciate the background knowledge that you bring. Any other members of council with any updates? Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Mayor Urschler.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ewald, and everyone, thank you so much for being here today. Of course, to all of you who are tuned in from home, thank you for being here. I know there's been a lot of great participation tonight. Thank you for being involved. It's always incredible to hear everyone's perspective on all of these different issues. Certainly, we are a large and diverse community, and we need all of these voices to be included in the dialogue. So thank you so much. And I know Jen said this, but and sometimes I know it seems strange even on our side, but please know that although no one is responding necessarily to your comment during public comment, know that we are feverishly writing them down, taking notes on that. Please know that your voices are being heard. It's not just a formality that we listen to them. So they are definitely being heard. We have conversations that certainly take place in the back end of this meeting with our staff. And please know that your voices are heard definitely in this process. Just during the formality of the meeting, it's very difficult to be able to have a two-way dialogue. And so that's why public participation is designed the way it is in these meetings. So thank you very much for your participation. I just wanted to also thank our incredible staff. I just can't imagine, I just can't continue to thank them enough. But our Public Works, Brian Watson, his team, certainly we have had a lot of snow this year. There's still a little residual out there left, but thank you so much to Brian and his team for helping to keep all of these roads clear. Thank you to all of our residents for being conscious of our snow emergencies. I know that it has been a rough and rocky year, certainly with the amount of snow that we have received. Again, if it ever starts snowing, no matter what day, just make sure that you're tuning in to the borough website, phoenixville.org, the borough Facebook pages, certainly my Facebook page. We have a couple of other Office of Emergency Management page. All of those pages will let you know whenever there's a snow emergency, but when there is, we need to make sure to keep our snow routes clear. That helps to make sure emergency vehicles can travel and traverse the borough as quickly as possible. On March 6th, we celebrated 172 years. So the borough was founded on March 6th, 1849. I think we look really good for 172 years. On March 6th, also, we want to thank Boy Scout Troops 58, 73, and 158 for making incredible contributions. They brought over 5 truckloads of food to PACS. PACS, of course, Phoenixville Area Community Services. They've moved into their new building, and they have a huge space where they are able to cater to a number of requests. They have gone through about 45,000 requests this last year alone. So they have a significant number more requests than they ever have. So certainly COVID has had an impact on a number of people in our community, and PACS specifically focuses on food insecurity. This is also March is Read Across America Month. So thank you so much to all my friends at all of our different schools who've let me come and visit with them. Our schools here in Phoenixville, and I've had a number of schools also that I've visited virtually who are online, and I've been able to read with them and their students. Also, happy International Women's Day yesterday, and Women's History Month. Of course, very proud of my mom right now, thinking about her, and certainly was one of the strongest women I know. And so thank you to all the incredible women. And I'm looking at my screen and seeing all of the incredible women who are here and part of the elected officials, part of our borough staff. So thank you to all of the great work that you do today and every single day. A couple of things that have taken place. We had the Extrava Gala from FaceTime Theater. Of course, during COVID, you can imagine that theaters, performing arts in general, have really struggled, especially community theaters. So if you have a community theater that you love, we have a number of them: Forge Theater, FaceTime Theater here in the borough. We have Salt Theater right outside of the borough. Make sure that you're reaching out to them, support them in whatever way you can. If you can support them financially, please do so. Some neat upcoming events I just wanted to talk about. We have an Irish Wake coming up. It's usually done by the Phoenixville Area Senior Center. It's generally done in person. However, of course, given our current restrictions, it will be done virtually. So you can hang out with us virtually. It's also a neat fundraising opportunity. You can still go to phoenixvilleseniorcenter.org. You can buy a ticket, go online, and basically they'll have a drive up where you pick up some potato soup and even a special drink called the Steel Boilermaker. So you can get a special drink, compliments of Sly Fox and Manitani Steelworks. So that's from the Phoenixville Area Senior Center. Again, phoenixvilleseniorcenter.org. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. I know this will be a very different St. Patrick's Day for many of us than we are accustomed to. Please, I would just ask that you stay safe, socially distant, and of course, just always stay safe. Anne's Heart, we had Get Down to the Heart last week. Really creative fundraiser. They couldn't do their polar bear plunge where they put us in a bunch of dunk tanks. And so they basically made us stand outside. And for every $50 donated, we had to take off a layer of clothes until we got down to a specially branded shirt, which said "Get Down to the Heart." So thank you to Ann's Heart for always being creative. Ann's Heart, of course, is home of the Code Blue Emergency Overnight Warming Shelter. We are one of the only overnight emergency warming shelters in Chester County. And so that's something to be really proud of. Also coming up towards the end of the month, this month, I believe it's on the 21st, it's on a Sunday, they'll have a Pay It Forward Cafe. Really neat concept. Anybody can sign up. If you are able to donate or contribute, they'll tell you about what the price of the meal. If you're not, that's okay too. Just sign up and you can come pick up a meal. So it's open to anybody within the community. If you are able to contribute financially, great. If not, that's okay too. So again, just go to, let me just tell you, that site is annsheart.org. Our friends over at Healthcare Access have a special virtual presentation coming up. It's karaoke. So I will certainly be participating. I would encourage you, if you have an interest, you can submit a karaoke video. They have some great cash prizes. You go to HCA Healthcare and then Phoenixville.org. So that's called Healthcare Access, another great organization we have here that helps people within our community access healthcare who may otherwise not be able to. I just want to thank our district attorney. We are working very, very closely with our district attorney, Deb Ryan, and also our police department. And we're working to schedule, when it will be available and appropriate, some conversations around policing and social justice. So be on the lookout on all of our different social medias and our webpage, where we find out some more information about that. But thank you so much to our district attorney and to our police department for participating in those conversations and ensuring those conversations continue onward. Also, our police department has been very diligently working on our reaccreditation. That process is very labor intensive. And so I just want to thank all of our members of our police department for going through that process. By being an accredited department, it sets us apart from all the other departments in the area because it is a unique accreditation, and it ensures that all of our officers follow the latest and the strongest guidelines of business and professional etiquette. So thank you so much to our department for your commitment to being an accredited department. I also want to thank our entire department, but specifically I want to call out Sergeant McIntyre and Detective Highland. They have been working on a case since last year that took place last year. Unfortunately, it resulted in a death by overdose, but they have recently had sentencing took place in that case, and it was appropriate for the unfortunate incident that took place. The sentencing for those, it's interesting being being your eyes and ears within our police department. Detectives and officers get one shot at making their case, and so they have to make it Loctite. And so thank you to our department. They put many hours in, certainly when an incident occurs, to ensure that they do the great work to certainly get the fair judgment, and they were able to do so in this case and bring justice to the unfortunate individual who passed away. So thank you so much to our department, especially to, again, Sergeant McIntyre and Detective Highland. Finally, Jean and I are very fortunate, and John Ewald, our president of our council, we spend a lot of time working on your behalf with our state representatives. I just want to take a moment and tell you, I know this has been a very challenging year, and vaccines are on the horizon. They are there in the future. We see them, and I think what's made it even more challenging is that we know they're here somewhere, and that is the key piece of this, is that we are working alongside of your state representatives, your state Senator Carolyn Comita, Melissa Schusterman, and of course, Danielle Friel-Otten. We are working to get those vaccines here to Phoenixville, and our Chester County Health Department and our commissioners. We're working to get those vaccines here as quickly as we possibly can. So please hold tight. I know you're probably seeing a lot of stuff come out in the newspapers right now about conversations around how vaccines were distributed. Certainly most important is we want to get them here, and we want to get everyone safely vaccinated as quickly as possible. So we continue as your borough representatives to push for that, as well as all of your state representatives and your county officials are all pushing for that too. So please make sure, if you are able to, if you fall into any one of the qualifying categories, that you are signing up on as many lists as you can possibly get a hold of. Once you do receive a vaccination, please make sure that you're taking yourself off those lists too, so that you free up some of that time from those different organizations, and they're not necessarily trying to call you. As we get into our warmer weather, It is beautiful. Today was beautiful. I was outside in shorts. I would just encourage you, please continue. I know it's been a long year, but please continue the social distancing, the mask wearing. Let's get through this as safely as we possibly can and get ourselves to these vaccines when it is possible. That sadly moves me into the last piece of my report, but it has been a very challenging year for us. On March 13th, 1 year ago, on March 13th, we will have declared our emergency, our state of emergency here in Phoenixville for COVID-19. Through that process, certainly we have seen a lot of challenges, and our country has seen a lot of challenges. To date, 526,000 people have lost their lives to COVID-19, including 29 people here in the borough of Phoenixville alone. So that's just the borough of Phoenixville. So our thoughts, certainly our prayers, go out to all of those families and to those individuals who have been impacted, who may be ill or who have been impacted or lost a loved one or lost a job in any way to the pandemic. So we as a community have certainly come together to respond to this the best way that we could. It's very challenging, certainly, to come together in a time where we're being asked to keep physically apart, but that has, we as a community have been able to continue to distribute meals. We've been able to quickly come up, we've had incredible groups do a PPE, so personal protective equipment right at the onset. And then as the borough, as an organization, certainly we talked about it tonight, or we're talking about it tonight, but we've really worked to help our businesses and our downtown area move forward economically. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. And thank you for being part of this community. And we're going to make it through. We'll make it through together, and we'll be stronger on the other end of it. But hang tight. I know it's felt like a long time. It has been a long time, but we're going to make it through here together and get through the finish line as a community. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, we'll move into item 8 of our agenda tonight with appointments and public resolutions. As we say each month, we always have a select number of spots available on our various boards and committees that members of the public that live in the borough. We seek out volunteers to join these committees. At this time, we'll have some openings on TAC, civil service, rec, and it looks like beautification coming up in the near term. That if you're interested, please contact borough staff, your borough council person. The application is on the website, and it's a straightforward, easy process to go through. With that said, we do have a number of folks tonight seeking some of the openings. I would ask that we, working with Jen and staff here, that we bring each person in as required for an interview. And then following the final interview, we make recommendations for appointments as deemed necessary. So with that, our first applicant tonight is Bill Davidson, looking to be reappointed to Human Relations Commission. Is Bill available, Jen?
I am promoting him now, Mr. Ewald.
Thank you.
Bill, are you there?
You might be muted, Bill.
Okay, sorry about that.
There you go.
Good evening.
Hi, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for reappointment here. Just to kind of, I guess, bring you up to date as an opportunity, because I have everyone together for the HRC. There's been obviously a strong push for equality in the recent, especially in the recent administration. In Pennsylvania specifically, in October 2018, or I'm sorry, August 2018, the Pennsylvania HRC made the decision that they would start hearing the cases regarding the LGBTQ community. And if you remember, the purpose behind setting the local HRCs up was because the lack of protection to the LGBTQ community. Under the discrimination of sex, they have decided to include the LGBTQ community. So those cases that would be coming to the local HRC is now going to the state. East Narton has had one case that they've had filed, and they did end up filing it with the state. So they are actually doing that. So from a state perspective, there's been a lot of movement there. Obviously, this is a Pennsylvania HRC decision, so that can always change with new members coming on board. So so it's just important that we continue our local HRC until we can get the state to approve some sort of Equality Act. From a federal perspective, as many of you know, we passed the Congress has passed the Equality Act, and it's now with the Senate. My feeling is it probably won't make it through the Senate as it is today. So there may be some changes made to it to get it through the Senate, but hopefully we're all hoping that it will pass, and then we will have a federal Equality Act, which helps all those states that currently do not have state acts, as in Pennsylvania. When that happens, HRCs will probably get together locally to figure out what do we look like and how do we go forward from here. We have groups of people together locally that I think were very important, and we could potentially look at this as an opportunity to reframe how those HRCs work locally with their different groups and different localities. So we'll just have to see what happens from there. So that's an update. I guess I'm open to any questions with regarding to my reappointment that you may have for me tonight.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Any questions from council on this first appointment? Okay. Thanks, Bill. And like I said, we'll vote on everybody at the end. And I appreciate your willingness to continue serving and being a founding member of this committee. So we appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Mr. Ewald, I only see Kat Bianco as the other individual in the audience, and you're on mute.
So I know we had reached out to the other applicants. Let's start with Kat if she's available.
Kat, I am promoting you to panelist.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for providing me the opportunity to present myself for the position on the Planning Committee. I know that not all of you know me, so I wanted to give you a little bit of background on myself. I have been in commercial real estate now for about 15 years, the majority of which has been just down the road in Great Valley. I currently work for a group called Workspace Property Trust. It's a commercial landlord with a national presence, where I'm a director of leasing for our Malvern submarket and responsible for a little over 2 million square feet of office and light industrial space. In addition to my day-to-day job, I am also on the board of several local nonprofits, including Petra Community Housing, which for those of you that are not familiar with them, is an organization focusing on providing affordable housing solutions in the surrounding areas. And also TMAC, an organization whose mission it is to facilitate cooperation between both the private and public sectors to analyze transportation issues and recommendations for solutions to reduce congestion and improve air quality. I believe my experiences and skill set uniquely qualifies me to understand the many different facets of planning and use that, and I'd love to be able to use that knowledge to help our Planning Commission as it reviews incoming applications for development. My passion really sits in strategic development and understanding how both communities and businesses engage with and therefore hopefully benefit from its built environment. I've also sat on the other side as an actual applicant for the Planning Commission and understand what it takes to go through the process. In the end, I believe it's important to understand that there's certainly a balance that the Planning Commission must walk in not only supporting both the economic development, but ensuring that that development is positioned most effectively within the community it sits. I know this question has come up with a previous committee meeting that we just recently had. So I'd like to mention that I do currently sit on the zoning hearing board for the Phoenixville Borough. I understand that my appointment to the Planning Commission would leave a vacancy on that board. And I certainly, unfortunately, can't serve on both. So depending on what the Borough Council chooses, I'm still committed to and would be happy to continue to continue my service on that board moving forward. In whatever capacity I end up serving, I will continue to make it my own personal mission to do what I can to best serve my community. My husband and I purchased our home and have been living in the Phoenixville Borough now for about 9 years. And we've seen such incredible progress and change during that time frame. It's an exciting time for Phoenixville as a whole, and I understand that this appointment comes with a large undertaking given the circumstances, and I certainly look forward to having the opportunity in which to serve. So I welcome any questions that you possibly have, and certainly appreciate, again, the opportunity.
Thank you. And with that, what questions do council have? Mr. Moore.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wald. Thank you, Kat, for applying. We appreciate this. I am the planning committee, the planning commission liaison for the Borough Council. My core question is, there have been a fair amount of expressions of public concern about the pace of growth and development in the borough. There's been some concerns that we're racing out ahead of things, that we're too full. As a member of the Planning Commission, how would you view, as a member, respond to these concerns, and what would you view as your responsibility as a member of the Planning Commission to respond to these concerns that are expressed by some facets of the public about too much growth?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because really, it's tough, right? There's going to be growing pains no matter what, and development will always contribute to that. And really, I think it's the Planning Commission's job to understand the zoning map, the zoning ordinances, local codes and federal codes, to understand, what is allowable by code, what has already been sort of planned within the strategic plan for Phoenixville, and understand how that balances with, some of the concerns that, people have locally, and being able to take a look individually, certainly at each one of those developments, and understand, maybe there are modifications that would assist not only the development of the site, but also the local residents that may either live near there or work near there, and understand how that can hopefully complement what else is happening within the borough. Certainly there are still, this board or this commission really still only makes recommendations to the Borough Council, which ultimately makes the decision. But I think it's important for the Planning Commission to fully understand certainly what the applicant is proposing. Sometimes that's requesting maybe additional deliverables so that both the Planning Commission and the community at large can better understand how that development's really going to fit within the community that they're looking to develop.
Thank you. That encompasses about what I was interested in understanding, because you answered both your view on your role and your view of the commission's role with regard to the concerns about growth.
Mr. Weiss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Bianco, it's great to see you again. Thank you for joining us tonight and entertaining our questions again. I did have one follow-up question that wasn't asked explicitly in the PPS committee that you previously attended, but I was interested to see or to hear if there are any specific issues that you would champion or issues that you would hope to specifically address if you are appointed to the Planning Commission.
I think that's really hard to suggest, only because, again, I think we have to take each development on a case-by-case basis. It would be hard for me to suggest that I have a singular goal or perspective that I'd like to see take place with each one of those developments, because again, I think we have to work within the constraints that we have. There's a zoning map and a zoning ordinance for a reason. Again, we're here to help make the right tweaks to make it a successful development. And each one of those potential applications could have a very different consequence to the surrounding community, depending upon what they're looking to to build. So I think it would be difficult to try and, single out any specific item, I would think.
I think that's a fair answer. I think public service of this nature is extremely nuanced. And so I sincerely appreciate your answer. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Mr. Crack.
So that all of council understands, you currently have 2 vacancies on the PC. All 4 applicants were vetted at the police personnel and public safety meeting. So Ms. Berkeley knows that she could offer up 1 or 2 or none. So she has that opportunity. Clearly, if, as Ms. Bianco has indicated, if she were to be successfully appointed to the PC, she would resign from the zoning hearing board, which would then create a position on the zoning hearing board. One of the applicants for the PC would not necessarily be eligible to apply for the zoning hearing board because her firm represents the zoning hearing board. So there's a couple of opportunities, but it's totally up to Borough Council. We don't normally bring this many people to the room, but because there was 4, I think Ms. Berkeley felt that it was appropriate to bring all 4 to them. But they have been properly vetted, so it's definitely council's decision as to what it might want to do tonight.
Thank you, Gene. Any further questions from council for Ms. Bianco? Mr. Kirkner.
Yes, if I may. Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Bianco, your resume is very impressive. I have a question and then a comment. Do you still play the cello?
I get this asked, I only laugh because honestly, people ask me this question all the time. And yes, I do every so often, probably not as much as I should, unfortunately.
Okay. Full disclosure, I cannot vote against a graduate of Westchester's music school because my son is also a graduate of there. He graduated a year after you from the music school. So
wonderful school. I'm sure
yes.
I'm sure we cross paths at some point in time.
So, but your background in property management and just what you voiced about your knowledge on the zoning and the zoning board is is impressive. So thank you for your interest in serving with the borough.
Thank you. I know it's not necessarily a small undertaking to be a part of the Planning Commission. I know there's a lot of time commitment involved, and I know it's not always necessarily very appealing for a lot of members of, the general public. And so I thought that this could be a nice way that I could, be able to provide a little bit more of my own service and hopefully utilize my skills to best serve the borough.
Great. Mr. Weiss.
Yes, Mr. President, this is a question maybe for our solicitor or maybe for Mr. Crack, but as council people, are we limited in the number of people we can vote for or we can vote to approve? I know ultimately council can only appoint 2 people, but as an individual council person, am I limited to 2 people that I can endorse with a vote?
Typically, what you would do is you would take somebody would make a nomination to appoint the first person, and then a nomination for the second person, and you keep going until you get a majority of folks for 1 or for 2, or then you move on and you wait until next month. So it goes until it stops. So
makes perfect sense.
We've got 2 openings, so you can definitely move forward. But if the second person doesn't get the number of votes, then the third person gets a shot at, and then the 4th person gets a shot at. Correct, Mr. Garner?
You are correct, Mr. Crack, and there's no required sequence of which one council wishes to nominate.
Gotcha. Wonderful. Thank you both, gentlemen.
Ms. Berkeley.
No, I just wanted to thank Ms. Bianco for her time, and I appreciated her comments regarding that there are zoning maps and there are ordinances in which decisions need to be made, and also her understanding that that there are tweaks that we can look at and want to make the best impact on our community when we're working within the confines of our ordinances. So I think she answered all of our questions really well, both in committee and tonight. And certainly her resume speaks for herself. So I wanted to thank her for her time before we move on to do formal vote.
Thank you.
I'll just check with, any other questions from council for Ms. Bianco? Seeing none, I thank you, Kat, for stopping by tonight, and we'll move on with our process here.
No problem. It's great to see everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
With that being,
Well,
sorry,
looking
Mr. Weiss,
through
do you
the
have other questions?
looking
No,
through
I
the
think I was
attendee
going
list.
oh, sorry.
Looking through the attendee list, I don't see any of our other applicants.
No.
And traditionally, we do not appoint without attending. So with that, what is council's pleasure for our vacancies tonight?
Yeah, so Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to reappoint Bill Davidson to the Human Rights Commission with a term ending on March 30th, 2024, as recommended in committee 3-0.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Berkeley, seconded by Mr. Moore by a hair. Any questions on the motion?
No, I would just want to thank Mr. Davidson, Bill, for all of his contributions to our community and for the great overview tonight.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 6-0. Mr. Dalton had to step away for just a moment.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Catherine Bianco to the Planning Commission for a term expiring March 31st, 2025.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Weiss, seconded by Ms. Berkeley. Questions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And motion passes 6-0 with Mr. Dalton out of the room at the moment. Very good. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Kat.
I think Mr. Dalton was there, wasn't he?
No, his camera's off.
Okay.
Yeah, he had to step away. Very good.
Thank you,
thank you.
everyone.
Thanks,
Have a great
everyone.
evening.
Bill and Kat, I'm going to put you back down as attendee.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, and with that, that takes us to our public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. We do have 4 public hearings tonight. Each of them will require a motion to open and close. And then once we move through all the ordinances, we can adopt them via resolution as needed. With that, what is council's pleasure for the motor vehicles and traffic public hearing tonight?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we open a public hearing to consider an amendment to Chapter 15, Motor Vehicles and Traffic.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kirkner, second by Ms. Berkeley. Questions on the motion to open a public hearing? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 6-0. I will turn this over to our solicitor, Mr. Garner.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. The first public hearing tonight is to obtain public comment with respect to proposed changes to the borough's master traffic ordinance. Specifically, in this case, the amendments would be to Chapter 15, Motor Vehicles and Traffic of the Codified Borough Ordinance. Procedurally, this hearing notice, as well as the intent to adopt the ordinance, was advertised in the Mercury on March 1st of this year. Because the entire ordinance was not published, it's required that we send notice of the full ordinance to the Chester County Law Library. That occurred on February 24th of this year. With respect to the changes to the ordinance itself, there are essentially 2 substantive sections to the ordinance. Section 1 addresses modifications to certain stop intersections as set forth in Section 15-213. In this case, we're creating stop intersections at Cowell Hill Street, Columbia Avenue, High Street, and Walnut Street. The second section or substantive section of the ordinance that's in front of council tonight concerns section 15-402. That's parking prohibited at all times in certain locations. In this case, if council were to enact the ordinance, you'd be creating additional portions of parking prohibitions on Bridge Street, the south side, Pothouse Road, the north side. Those would be the changes to the ordinance, Mr. President. At this point, if there was anyone in the audience that wishes to address council with comments with respect to the changes, now would be the time to do that. We'd ask Ms. Logan acknowledge you, provide your name and address, and comments to council regarding specifically the ordinance changes that we're talking about as part of this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Garner. With that, as our solicitor has stated, any members of the public wishing to make any comments during this public hearing, please raise your hand virtually through the Zoom platform. We'll give that a moment since there is a slight delay between our end and the public end. We just want to make sure that we stay caught up here.
At this time, Mr. Ewald, I don't have any hands raised for this portion of public participation.
Very good. Thank you, Jen.
Mr. Ewald, I would note for council's information, the ordinance has been advertised for consideration this evening. So once you close the public hearing, the ordinance is in a position to be adopted should you want to move forward tonight.
Thank you, Chuck. Seeing no hands raised, we can move forward with closing this round of public participation. Mr. Kirk.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing for the ordinance amendment to Chapter 15, Motor Vehicles and Traffic.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kirkner, seconded by Ms. Berkeley. Questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0 with Mr. Dalton back in the room. So one public hearing down. Our next one is pertaining to chapter dealing with water. Mr. Crack.
Did you want to move on that ordinance?
Oh, I was going to bring up motions to vote on all of them after we get through all four.
My apologies.
Yeah. So with that, we'll need a motion to open a public hearing for rewrites of our water chapter.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Berkeley, second by Mr. Kirkner. Once again, I will hand this off to Chuck for explanation on this advertised ordinance change.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. The second public hearing advertised in front of Borough Council tonight is in regards to changes to Chapter 26, Water of the Phoenixville Code of Ordinances. This is essentially a repeal of existing Chapter 26 and a rewrite of the ordinance and readoption to kind of bring it up to date, what might be considered an antiquated ordinance. Noting from the current ordinance, it was not significantly changed since the 1980s. So certainly time to take a look and update the ordinance. Procedurally, this public hearing notice, as well as the intent to adopt the ordinance, was advertised in the Mercury on March the 1st of this year. Again, this is a very lengthy ordinance, so it was not published in its entirety. Therefore, it was provided to the Chester County Law Library on February 24th of this year. This ordinance contains about 25 sections. It contains 5 separate parts. Some of the changes or updates to the ordinance would include removing the language regarding extraterritorial service, since the borough has sold some of its water assets. It removes some old language with respect to specific amounts of fees that were charged, and obviously they're updated. Essentially, the ordinance brings the whole process in compliance with the practice and procedure that the borough has today. With respect to the parts, and I'm, again, not going to go into significant detail given the size of the ordinance amendment. Part 1 deals with operation and maintenance of the system. Part 2 of the ordinance deals with definitions. Part 3 deals with rates, rules, and regulations. Part 4 is water connections, and Part 5 is cross connections and backflow. At this point, I would ask if there's any members of the public that wish to provide any comments to Borough Council with respect to the changes to Chapter 26 water. Now would be the time. As with the last public hearing, Jen would acknowledge the comment. I would ask the individual state their name and address and provide their comment to Borough Council.
And we'll just give this a moment here.
And again, Mr. President, while we're waiting, if there are any folks that wish to comment, the ordinance has been advertised. It's in a position for council to act on the ordinance this evening if you choose to do so.
Mr. President, at this time, I have no hands raised for this particular portion of public participation.
Very good. Thank you, Jen. With that, we'll take a motion to close this round.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Berkeley, second by Mr. Kirkner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0 to close this round of public participation. Third up tonight, we have one on taxation.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we open a public hearing to consider amending Chapter 24, taxation, Part 7, with regard to the per capita tax.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kirkner, second by Mr. Moore. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. We will now open a third public hearing for consideration of changes to the taxation. Mr. Gardner.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. President. The third hearing this evening for the purpose of taking public comment is with respect to changes to Chapter 24, taxation, Part 7 of the codified ordinance of Phoenixville Borough, addressing the per capita tax specifically. The public hearing notice, as well as the ordinance advertised in the Mercury on March the 1st of this year. Again, notice was provided to the Chester County Law Library on February 24th. As noted from the introduction, the borough through this ordinance is repealing and deleting in its entirety the per capita tax, which is part of the codified tax portion of the ordinance. The borough stopped collecting the tax, I believe it was last year. So by deleting it, you're basically taking it off the books to be consistent with your practice. At this point, if there's any public comment, again, Ms. Logan can ask the individuals to state their name and address and provide whatever comment they might have to Borough Council on the deletion of the per capita tax.
Don't anticipate too many people being against this.
Wouldn't think so.
Okay, with that, I'm not seeing any hands raised or public comments made, so.
No, Mr. Ewald, you are correct. There are no hands raised for this round of public participation.
Thank you. With that, what is council's pleasure?
Mr. President, I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Kirkner, seconded by Ms. Berkeley to close this round of public participate or for this public hearing for this ordinance revision. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Brings us to our fourth round of public hearings tonight for an ordinance pertaining to license permits and general business regulations. What is council's pleasure for our fourth and final public hearing tonight?
Mr. President, I move we open the fourth and final public hearing to consider an amendment to Chapter 13 of our ordinances, licenses, permits, and general business regulations
Second.
and special events.
Motion by Mr. Kirkner, seconded by Mr. Moore. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0, and this will open our fourth and final public hearing. Once again, Mr. Garner.
Okay, thank
Keeping
you.
busy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fourth and final hearing, we'll try and keep this one quick as well, is to amend Part 13, special events of Chapter 13 of the codified ordinances as it relates to special events. Procedurally, this public hearing and the intent to adopt changes to this portion of the ordinance was also advertised in the Mercury on March 1st of this year. Complete copy of the ordinance was provided to the Chester County Law Library because the entire ordinance was not published in the newspaper. Essentially, this ordinance updates the ordinance that regulates temporary community events. It spells out in detail in about 17 substantive sections the review and approval process for temporary community events, which I think the borough has been following now for the last few years. It appears that the last update to this ordinance was 2011, and I believe the process has changed somewhat since that time. So at this point, the ordinance is in front of you. I would again ask Ms. Logan if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to provide comment to council with respect to the change of the ordinance regarding temporary community events. Now would be the time.
Mr. Ewald, I see no hands raised again for this portion of public participation.
Very good. We'll just give it a quick moment since there's a minor delay still. Okay, with no hands raised, we will, we've concluded the public hearing portion of this. What is council's pleasure?
I move we close the public hearing on this ordinance change.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Moore, seconded by Ms. Berkeley. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. As Mr. Garner stated, all four of these are ready to be adopted should they be, should the motions present. What is council's, oh, Mr. Crack, sorry. You're on mute.
So I see that. A couple points of clarification before, so that you can do the proper motions. As a victim of cut and paste, we periodically fall victim to that. Your agenda says consider scheduling and advertising a public hearing. Obviously, you had the public hearing tonight on all four of those items. So any motion would be consider an ordinance amendment and take the language in that direction. And then compounding the fracture that I've broken the bones on. This last ordinance has currently the date of 12th of January. Clearly today is the 9th of March. We will correct that if this moves forward tonight and get that that date changed. So just points of clarification.
Thank you, Gene. With that, what is council's pleasure pertaining items A through D of the public hearing section of tonight's agenda?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we adopt the amendment to the ordinance for Chapter 15 for motor vehicles and traffic.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kirkner, seconded by Mr. Moore. Questions on the motion for adopting this amendment to the ordinance? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. What is council's pleasure pertaining to water?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we adopt an ordinance amending the code of the ordinance of the Borough of Phoenixville for the purposes of repealing the current Chapter 26 order in order to enact an updated Chapter 26 order.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Moore, seconded by Ms. Berkeley. Questions on this motion? for this change? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have our taxations per capital tax repeal. What is council's pleasure pertaining to this ordinance revision?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we repeal Chapter 24, Taxation Special, Part 7 of the addressing the per capita tax.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kirkner, seconded by Mr. Weiss. Not often we get to make a motion like that.
I know.
Questions on this motion?
This will be the second time I voted to repeal the per capita tax, and it feels pretty good.
Any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And finally, we have our special events revision to the ordinance. What is council's pleasure for this item?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance amendments to Chapter 13 for licenses, permits, and general business regulations, as well as special events for
Second.
Part 13 for the latter.
Motion by Mr. Kirkner, seconded by Ms. Berkeley. Questions on this item or this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Did we cover all the bases there, Chuck?
Yes, you did, Mr. President. You've taken care of all 4 ordinances.
Very good. Thank you, council. With that, we will now move into section 12 of our agenda tonight with reports from committees, boards, and commissions. First up tonight, we do have Planning Commission with Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a meeting in February. We had a number of items that were addressed. The first several, including discussion of the Gay Street and Munter Street development. That was simply an update on the plan, and that project is still under consideration with the Planning Commission. By the way, we do have a meeting this Thursday evening, the time of which has been moved to an earlier time, is now 6 rather than 7 p.m. So if you are interested in attending, that project will further discussion will be in front of in front of Planning Commission. There was also a discussion of a new proposal. I think it was a preliminary plan or a preliminary sketch plan for the old City Hall on Church Street. A new proposal which has which is currently going through the Planning Commission process and has a lot of comments on the initial plan. So that was in discussion. And then the third item, which came before us and which we are going to have to deal with a little bit differently tonight. The 34 South Main Street preliminary final plan, development plan, was reviewed and recommended 7-0 by the Planning Commission in the action memo of January 22nd, 2021. Wait. Is that right? Is that date right?
It's a month off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
correct
I'm
that.
sorry. Let me look at the resolution. It's actually. That has been the project that was in discussion with, which was during the public commentary, the former Masonic Hall at the corner of Church and Main Street. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Kirkner to discuss further. Not Kirkner, I'm sorry, just over to the Borough Manager.
Yes, I believe the applicant is here tonight, and we're hoping to get a presentation for this project for Borough Council to review. Mr. Crack, is that the applicants?
I believe Mr. Hanson and Mr. Lyons are here. I see both their names up now. So They are here to talk about their project and respond to, obviously, there's some conditions of approval in the resolution, which they are aware of, and they're able to respond to that. Of note, I will indicate to council the clock on this is through the 14th of April. So you have tonight, and after you hear what you have to hear, you can take action tonight. You can also defer until the April meeting. So you got a lot in front of you tonight.
Thank you, Gene. With that, John and Sean, if I don't know if you have a presentation or if you just wanted to discuss the project, but I think it would be helpful for all of council to get some more information on this.
Thank you, Mr. Ewald. Again, my name is John Hassan. I'm with 3GHC Architects, and I'm representing the owners of 34 South Main Street, known as the Main Street Lofts LLC. And that is Mr. Sean Lyons, who's on the line tonight, as well as Mr. Dexter Lanigan, who could not be here. So the proposal, and I don't know if the drawings are available for review, that we could share a screen or not, or I could certainly just, discuss the project in general and open it up to questions. But the owners are proposing to convert the old Masonic Hall at 34 South Main Street, the upper 2 floors, to 22 loft style apartments, 11 on each floor. The apartments are ranging from 400 to 500 square feet in general, and they are designed as a single occupant unit. We are working with the Chester County Housing Authority to lease the units to veterans through the HUD-VASH program. And that is basically what the upper 2 floors will consist of. The ground floor, which has 3 existing commercial spaces, the front commercial space that faces onto Main Street, that will remain a commercial space. It is available for lease. It's about 2,200 square feet. The second commercial space, which faces onto Church Street, will be reduced in size slightly to allow for a handicap accessible apartment to be on ground level, to allow us to meet that code there. There will be no visibility from the street showing the apartment whatsoever. It will strictly be the commercial unit, which is also available for lease as well. The third commercial unit, which is the small 1-story building in the back of the property, which is known as 209 Church, that will also remain a commercial unit and is going to be utilized as the building's laundry facility. All of the residents will have access to the laundry facility through the main entrance lobby and the stair tower. And then also the laundry will be available and open to the public during kind of normal business hours that we haven't really developed yet, but we're kind of thinking 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. as what would be available to the public. We're always open to suggestions for that. We did go through all of the township engineers review comments, and we are going to comply with all of them. One of the big concerns was where was solid waste going to be stored. And we did create an area on the ground level inside the building internally that is part of the laundry facility, that all of the tenants will have access to that trash facility. There'll be a number of containers in there that will handle the trash, and the trash will be picked up by a private company hired by the owners. They will go into the building, remove the trash, and bring the containers back after they're offloaded. There will be no trash or containers, stored outside for any reason. Going through the project, that pretty much really kind of summarizes the changes to the building. To the exterior of the building, we are preserving the exterior, the historical aspect of the building. We did receive HARB approval at their December meeting, and we are planning to kind of restore the building back to its historic nature. One of the fire escapes on the Church Street side will be removed, and the doors will be replaced back with some windows that match the existing windows in kind. We did talk about a lot of parking, and parking does seem to be the big concern with the borough. This building is within the town center, which does not require any parking, and is not, have any density requirements either. So we did do some comparison analysis of some proposed uses that could occupy the building if it weren't, our proposed use. In particular, if it was larger type of apartments that say were 2 bedrooms and were, instead of 23 units, there was only 10 units, you could potentially have, a mom and a pop and say 2 driving kids in those apartments, which could generate 40 cars. It could also be redeveloped into a assembly type use, which it currently is. It's a hall. It's got a full commercial kitchen up there on those upper floors. Somebody could rent that out as a banquet facility, which could easily host, 200 or 300 people in there.
It's 9:00.
Generating the need for several hundred parking spots. If it were an office per se, there could be as many as 90 people up on those 2nd and 3rd floors, which could easily generate, 90 to 100 cars on a daily basis out there. So in terms of our use, these are small individual units, single occupant. They will be veterans. There's a good chance that some of them may not even own a vehicle. So we don't even feel like the parking ratio is 1-to-1. It may be less, but we can't really guarantee that. We have made efforts to contact local businesses to talk about acquiring some parking and making it available to our tenants on a case-by-case basis. We certainly will promote that. We do have interest in one of the businesses that said they would allow us to, lease some parking spaces on a case-by-case basis. So we are and will promote that with our tenants. In terms of the parking situation and one of the conditions imposed by the planning board, which would be letter E on the resolution of condition, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Lyons, who has a statement that he would like to read. And in terms of the parking situation.
Yeah, well, first off, the goal here was to create affordable housing. We understand that Chester County, and we worked with Chester County and the Housing Authority to work on affordable housing. That was the main goal to begin with. We were trying to find a great option for the Housing Authority, and downtown Phoenixville is a great option for these veterans to have an alternative to some of the other locations throughout Chester County, to give these veterans a chance to live in a great urban environment and experience amenities that Chester County has to offer. This property offers a great solution to this huge problem. The town center zoning itself regarding parking also helps the project become affordable. All of this is regulated, federal regulated and administered by the county. All rental rates are administered and handled by the county. So our goal was to make an affordable facility that was nice in an urban environment. So we really wish and ask for your approval in granting this waiver to help us address this urgent need. We believe that this is a need that's right now, it's immediate, especially with what's happening with COVID-19 and the need for housing. This addresses a lot of the concern through Chester County, and we believe this would be a great success and a great chance for people to live in a great community in Phoenixville.
Thank you, Sean. With that being said, I'd like to open it up to council to see if there are any questions from council in terms of the project.
For formality's sake and trying to keep up with Robert's rules is difficult to do in a Zoom environment. It would be traditional to have a motion to go forward with this.
Okay, I'll make a motion to move forward with the proposed plan for the 34 Church Street, 34 Main Street project, as approved by the Planning Commission 7-0 in the previous meeting.
Brian.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Moore, second by Ms. Berkeley. With that, we will open up discussion from council on this item. I know Jen is available to bring up documents should we need them. I know the visuals were available in our packets for review, as well as available in the Planning Commission packets in the months prior. So with that, what is council's questions for the applicants?
Yes, Mr. President, if I may, I have one question, and I did not dig this out of the packets that we have, so forgive me if it's in there. And it may seem obvious, but are these units sprinklered?
Yes, Mr. Kirkner, they will be fully sprinkled.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Mr. Weiss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I believe during our public participation, someone mentioned something about an exterior chairlift. I serve on the HARB. I don't think I saw that come across in the HARB approval. Is that an aspect of this project? Could someone speak to that?
Hi, Mr. Weiss. Yes, certainly. It was not a part of HARB. It kind of developed after the HARB approval as a discussion at the planning board meeting. However, we removed that from the project and it is not being considered here. There is no chairlift at all being proposed, and the access to the handicap unit will be through the ground level door.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Question with regard to the ground level, that ground level unit. There was an objection raised also in the public that there needed to be 2 points of exit, including one that would be on the rear of the building, and that we were going to either get an easement or make arrangements on that. And the person who was making comments said that it's their understanding that that's not been obtained. So can you speak to the disability apartment and to the access with regards to that?
Indeed, there is a rear door that is existing on the side of the building that opens up into the alleyway there. And it would be part of the handicap apartment, allowing for a second means of egress. The apartment is small enough and it's sprinkled that it would not really require a second means of egress. That is one of the essentials that give us that is sprinkling the building. So the door is there. We kind of talked about it as having an access. Our property does have a legal right to that alleyway that is there by easement on deed that we can certainly provide documentation for.
I'm a little concerned about that. I was literally trying to study that corner this weekend. I don't see, where does the alley let out to? Church Street?
Main Street. It's in between us and the building to the right on Main Street.
Oh,
which
okay.
would be 30 Main Street, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So that there, okay.
Yes.
I thought it meant out down to the
On the
other
Church Street side, yeah, there's no access to it from Church Street. It strictly comes out the side of the building facing that alleyway, and the alleyway opens up onto Main Street.
Can you speak to the concerns expressed that each unit would supposedly have to have both a trash can and a recyclable can, and that therefore there would be 40-some containers that would be stored in that single room next to the laundry room?
Absolutely, Mr. Moore. So the general thinking is that we would hire an individual private company that would go at a minimum twice a week, thereby allowing the 22 totes to suffice. And if necessary, we would even up it to 3 times a week based on the volume. We've got no issue with that.
Not to interrupt, but since it's on the topic, I did have a question related to that. Since it is an indoor trash room, does it have to be 22 toters? Is there something else that could be that could store the trash appropriately, still have recycling, and be more sanitary than the toters, since you are hiring a private company? Is that something that is an option? I'm thinking of inside. Are toters required? Is that part of our ordinance, or would some other appropriate way of storing the trash be acceptable if it was being emptied on a regular basis at an appropriate, frequency?
That is a great question. And usually whoever the private vendor is that you work with, that we would be working with, would give us options on the different size containers that they do offer. One of the things we do want to keep in mind, though, is that it is coming through the front door of the facility, which is limited in size. So we want to make sure that whichever container we do use is able to, fit through the door. So we are willing to, increase the number of pickups per week to, to work with the demand, if that makes sense.
And I guess too, another question I would have then, I heard you just say, and that was how I was visualizing it. So thank you for confirming that the trash would go through the front door when you had that private service picking up.
Right.
Is there any other way to look at how things are configured that would make it easier, or is that the best option? And I'm sure this was discussed. I have looked over everything, but sometimes hearing it is a little bit easier to kind of work through that. Is that the best option? Are there other ways of configuring things that it could be picked up in a less intrusive way, or is that the least intrusive way for it to be disposed of?
We feel like it gives us the best solution. It allows easy access for the tenants. It allows easy access for the private company to come in without any disruption to the tenants as it's in through the commercial spaces. We thought about initially putting them upstairs in individual room and closets at the end of the halls, but we felt like that was not a good solution. And we felt like a central location on the ground level that would make it easy for, a company to come and, pick up the trash on a regular basis 2-3 times a week. And
it may not necessarily be 22 toters for trash, 22 toters. It could be something else that is what's recommended or available through the private service.
Correct.
Does, to continue with this, because this has been expressed very strongly by the neighbors. There's been concerns that twice a week, 24 toters will be deposited upon the sidewalk for pickup. Or will they, I guess what this really comes down to is who will actually have a relationship with the trash removal company, and to what degree do we have an understanding if we give these waivers for this project to go forward, that the arrangements that we are discussing here actually are executed once the building is occupied and continue to be executed, or further down the line your company decides to sell it, Main Street LLC sells to some other investor and they change the plan. Do we have any way of, kind of making sure that this trash management issue is established rather than just discussed?
It could definitely be part of the conditions of approval. And in terms of containers being on the sidewalk, they will be out there for a very brief moment while the private company goes in, grabs them, brings them out, empties them, and then returns them right away. They're not left out there. They will not be left out there all day waiting for, waiting for the facilities to come pick them up. It will be
it's envisioned that it would be removed when the truck is there to pick up the trash.
That's right. Nobody's going to bring them out to the curb. It will be the sole responsibility of the trash company to go in, get them, bring them out, and then return them back to the inside. And that's a very common service. We've used that many times in the past and have done that very successfully.
And we will have a manager there on site to make sure this is running smoothly as well. And then in terms of longevity, the Chester County and the Housing Authority has a very long-term lease, and we anticipate, especially with the historic tax credits and the other avenues that we're going for, we would see this being a long-term hold for us, and we really want to be in the community for a really long time.
Can you explain that? You said Chester County Authority has a lease?
Well, they have a with the Housing Authority, with the HUD, the VA program, they have a long-term affordable housing lease with us that we will execute upon the completion of this project. We have We've been dealing with the community, with Chester County Housing Authority, and we have a contract to house veterans right now. I think they have about 68 veterans that they need to house, and we can accommodate as many as possible, and we plan to accommodate all 23 units with veterans.
So, to that, I was not familiar with the HUD or the VASH voucher until this project came about, and then I started to educate myself a little bit. So for other members of council or those participating at home, could you kind of explain, like, there's a lot of acronyms when we talk about these things, so sometimes it gets confusing. Could you kind of explain what that is or what that means? Because to some people that might just be an acronym that haven't been able to research this a little bit.
I can try my best. It's a voucher program, so it's subsidized. The housing authority goes out and vents through to get the veterans, and they go out and look to place the veterans in different locations throughout Chester County. They have a certain amount of vouchers that they allocate, and then they try to house them based on where these veterans are, either where they're coming from homeless or they're close to getting back into the workforce. This particular project would be more of they're getting back into the workforce. They might not need as many of the services that other facilities offer in terms of the counseling. Each veteran has a actual counselor assigned to that individual that helps them place them in either a job or helps them get back on their feet. But this particular facility is going to be a little different than the others, as that it's more of as the individuals are further along, maybe they went through a couple other facilities and now they're really on their feet, have a job, and been vetted through the program.
So when you say vetted through the program, and again, just to kind of in layman's terms, is this the housing authority that's determining they're qualified for this, or is it the VA that's involved with kind of placing them, just to get an idea of the program?
Yeah, I believe both are involved, housing authority and the VA. There's two programs. They work together. The housing authority would love to find affordable housing. We specifically, our partner is a veteran, and that was the plan. He's done another veteran facility in the city of Philadelphia. So it was really, our goal was really to house veterans in need. And this project just worked out perfectly for what we were looking for, as well as what dealing with Chester County was looking for. And Phoenixville is a great alternative. Most of these facilities are in Coatesville. Not a lot of them have the downtown environment and amenities that Phoenixville has. So it really was an absolute awesome project for the housing authority to be able to put them potentially in Phoenixville. Hope that answers your question. I don't know if could I answer it for you, Beth?
Well, but I'm continuing to educate myself on the program. And I certainly agree. Phoenixville has a lot of amenities and is a good downtown, very accessible, lots of resources. We're very nonprofit rich. So I wouldn't disagree that this could be a great community for veterans. I just want to continue to educate myself and the community on what exactly this HUD and VASH program are. Of course, I guess my other question too, and not related to the veterans, but or the specific housing authority qualifications, but how was it kind of determined how many units would go in, and how was that part of the architecture plan? How did you decide that? What was your thinking there?
Well, we designed the apartments around, the veterans and that use specifically. They're small individual apartments. They have a private bathroom. The building itself has very tall ceilings, and so that is what allows us to take advantage of the loft space. And that is really what kind of drove the plan, was the fact that, all right, these don't need to be large. They're for individuals. They're a nice size for a single person coming back into the community, and they're very affordable. So that was really what the driving factor was. And also, to make this a financial, successful project, we were trying to, fit in as many as we could. So it's a good balance between the size of the unit, the amenities within the unit. I think it will be, a great unit for individuals, to live in those buildings. The view out the windows will be fantastic. And, I think it'll be a great project for the community and for the individuals. They will get to, you know, share in the downtown experience, promote the downtown businesses, et cetera. So that's really what drove the program. I hope that answers your question there.
Go ahead, Ms. Dugan next.
Oh, thank you. Although I really do appreciate the idea that we're going to try to take care of our veterans and, you know, do it in a low income, like reasonable level, I am really concerned about the trash situation, as apparently everybody else is, and incredibly concerned about the parking situation, because I think that's a disaster waiting to happen. Parking is at a premium there. And we're going to add, and I understand that not everybody's going to have a car, but seriously, there's no public transportation here. Somebody's going to have cars. That's not going to not happen. So, I mean, how are we going to deal with that if we were to, you know, approve that?
Well, just one point of order, there is actually two separate SEPTA bus lines that stop immediately in front of this building. So there is public transportation.
I guess I meant a little bit different as far as like
Okay.
a train or something, if to get out of town or something like that. So besides that, go ahead. You know, what are we gonna do about the parking? Because everybody else is using that parking. That's premium parking downtown. I don't.
And we do recognize the concerns over the parking. Like we have reached out to several local businesses to make parking available to our tenants on an as-needed basis. So if a tenant comes along, has a vehicle, they wish to, you know, rent one of the parking spots, they will have that availability.
So
Sorry. You're gonna rent the parking spaces? Like how much would that? I don't understand how that works. So
We don't really have a formal agreement with the business owner yet. However, there's been some discussions. He has parking. We have a need. It will probably be the burden of the individual tenant to include that parking in their rent. And they will work out an agreement directly with that business owner.
and how many did you have there?
He said we can have as many as we want, upwards of, you know, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, you were the one that spoke to him, but, you know, in the neighborhood of 12 to 15.
Oh.
Correct. And it's,
Okay,
you
I
know,
like
it's,
that.
yeah, and it's
Got
a
it.
local, it's, maybe it's like, it's a little bit, you know, it's like 3 blocks away. 3 blocks away. And, you know, we obviously know that there's a major concern for parking in the town. And, you know, we obviously know that some residents will need parking. Obviously, with the local transportation right outside the building is great. But, you know, we will proactively search for as many parking options as possible. And we continue to do so. And we've reached out to numerous owners in reference to that. And we've reached back out to the housing authority and asked them what their truly need is for parking. You know, our deal was not contingent upon any parking with them. You know, they said that some guys do use cars and some guys don't, but, you know, a lot of them use public transportation, but I can't say 10 of them or 12 of them or 20 of them. But we feel very confident that we do have options for parking for the tenants, as well as the commercial tenants as well, because there obviously are numerous parking lots in the community. But we did speak to one particular owner that does have numerous spaces that he would like to lease.
Okay, that's good. I just have one other question. I think this is more of a technical question. When I was going through, I don't know who can answer this, but I was going through all the documents that were associated with this, and this property was not originally zoned for this. How did that change? I don't know. You know, this was not supposed to be a residential use thing, according to the documents that were really far down.
Ms. Dugan, I'm not sure what you mean by that. It is,
Well, hold on,
it
let
is a
me-
by right use as residential apartments there. And
Okay,
it
this was a long time ago one. I started all the way back at the beginning with the info here, so it's really hard to find now. But apparently, I didn't hear anything about this until kind of recently, when this the property has like a long history here.
Sure.
So when I was going through all the documentation, it kind of looked like it was not supposed to be for residential.
I'm not aware of that, and I apologize.
I'm just wondering when that changed, because it just looked like it was denied, and it was all the way back at the beginning.
I don't know that it was, as I understood it, the reason it's in front of it went through the land development ordinance because it was a change of use, but it was an allowable change of use, is my understanding. That's why it went through, there's a couple letters from Dave Belker and a couple other people that say,
Yeah, that's
it
what
should-
I was looking at too.
It
Yeah.
should, it should go through, you needed to go through Saldo versus, some of the other projects like what's that building on Second that goes into Gay? It's the turned into a bunch of apartments there. It was the Drapery building and so forth. That didn't
Oh,
have
yeah.
to go through Saldo. But that was converted from a workspace to apartments. But this one, because Dave made the determination that it needed to go through Saldo, but much of as I understand from the discussions on Planning Commission, much of the land use ordinance doesn't apply to this structure, so they're asking for waivers from having to go through them. Does that explain? I hope I was helpful with explaining that, Dana.
Actually, that actually was a little bit helpful there. Thank you very much.
I'd like to further ask a couple of questions about the layout. With this regard to some concerns that were expressed about by people who don't necessarily have veterans in their family or work with the veterans, but there were concerns expressed that there's an assumption that these are an older generation of people. Looking at the layout and the documents of the full plans, these are all loft apartments with 12 to 14 steps up to the loft. My question is, did the Housing Authority and the Veterans Department see this described apartment? And do they have any opinion or do they have any rules as to whether they say this is appropriate housing for the veteran population we serve?
To answer your question, yes, they have toured the facility a couple of times. They've reviewed our drawings and have committed to leasing the units from us. In terms
so
of
then they don't, those are two organizations do not have any objections to placing their veterans in these apartments.
That is correct. Someone used the word elderly. However, I think that's a misinterpretation. These are not necessarily elderly folks. These could be younger folks that are going through the veterans. There's current wars that that are much younger veterans.
Okay.
So again, I can't speak for the Veterans Department themselves, but they both individuals that are in charge of these programs have been to the facility and did not really express any concerns of the upper levels.
Or any concerns about there not being an elevator to take people? No. Okay.
Nope, no concerns.
Mr. Weiss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Two questions. One, is the nature of this program a transitional program, or are these intended to be somewhat permanent homes or homes that these individuals would be living in for a number of years? Can you help me understand if there are any expectations or restrictions around that?
Sean, I don't know if you could speak to this at all or not. You're more familiar with the program.
Yeah, this is one of the, I guess, at the later stages of going through any kind of programs. Some of the veterans might have came from a homeless facility before this. This is really I guess maybe the last facility they'd had before they went out and maybe they bought their own home or they went out. So it's really like the end of the transition, I guess I would say. And again, somebody might stay there for a couple of years. I mean, but in terms of transitioning, it's transitioning, I think, to getting back on their feet, getting back into the workforce, and then maybe, establishing a family or buying a house or what have you. This is, I would assume, it's like the later stages through the process that the veterans are going through.
So am I right
in require? I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
No, so it doesn't necessarily. I mean, they're not necessarily going to have a physical disability or what have you, or maybe a younger individual. not really, hence the 1 bedrooms, really not real need for 2 bedrooms. And some of the other facilities that we've been associated with that had 2 bedrooms never even really used the other bedroom. Unfortunately, some of these families don't come and visit, so they don't need a 2 bedroom. So really that's what was designed specifically for them, and for their needs, and to make it efficient so it's affordable at the same regard. So not a lot of wasted space, but give them a really nice high ceiling, exposed woodwork, great windows, exposed brick, really make it a really beautiful property, and give them a nice place to live. And it probably would be, I would assume, maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe, for an individual.
Okay. Is there any aspect of forced turnover, like that there is a point at which their participation in the program expires and they'd be forced to turn over?
Well, with the exception, they're regulated through the federal government, and they're also regulated through the housing authority. And then we get to approve these individuals. So we'll work with their counselors in depth to decide whether we want to have them in our building or not. So, like, for example, if they have a violent behavior or they have a criminal record or what have you, those are some of the things that we could say that we don't prefer. And those are some of those. We still get to make the final decision if we're going to allow them in our building or not. But they are vetted. They are vetted through the housing authority prior to us.
Okay. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, like, is there a maximum time? Like, no one will live in this place for more than 18 months or 2 years or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't.
So that was my first question. Second question is, I believe in a prior version of this plan or something that had been presented elsewhere, that you were targeting having about half of these units go to this program, to this veterans program. Am I correct in remembering that? And can you help me understand why the move went from half to totally, or to?
Yeah, it was literally the first I think meeting we had. We didn't have a full 100% commitment from the veterans. We basically were trying ourselves to just proactively make our facility available for veterans. And then as we filed the correct paperwork with the housing authority, we were granted the maximum amount that we can occupy. They loved our project, and they thought they would use as many as they could have. So the reason why it started off, I think we said 6, to be honest with you. I think it was like 20%, or we came up with a number that we thought was, we were going to basically use 6 or 7, and we weren't certain if what we were going to do at that particular moment. And we didn't have the full commitment as we do today. We had that literally after that first hearing. So that's why you had a lower density count of veterans.
Makes sense.
It was always our intention to put as many as we could. We just didn't know if we were going to get as many as we got.
Okay. And then another question, and I know this might not be available or you might not have access to it, but if there was any information about as folks move through these programs, what becomes of them? So, like, folks that qualify for this kind of housing and are in there, do they tend to stay in the communities that they're in when they exit these places? Like, is this going to be a feeder into the Phoenixville community more broadly, or is this going to be more of kind of a transient experience where people are here for a period of time and then move on somewhere else? I'm not saying that would really sway decision making in kind of any direction, but it would be something that I'd be interested to know.
I believe that these are mostly Chester County individuals that possibly went to war, joined the military, and came back to Chester County.
Okay.
But it's hard for me to answer all that. I I would assume that once they move into Phoenixville, they probably don't want to leave or go too far away. But I think they would probably be 2 or 3 years of transition. Some would want to stay as long as possible. It sounds like this particular voucher program, there's going to be a lot of people that really want to get into this particular building. They're coming from other facilities and other areas that aren't as great as Phoenixville is. So it's going to be a high demand. And from my understanding, we're going to have, it's going to be a very high demand for the veterans. They're going to want to be there.
Thank you. That's a balance of my questions. So appreciate the answers.
Ms. Berkeley, you're on mute.
2021, that still continues.
Yeah.
So I have a statement and then some questions. Just to kind of go back on parking, and I know that this is a hot topic. It's my ward, so I don't feel like I would be doing my job without mentioning parking again. And I understand all the stipulations around parking and that it's not required. I understand that these may be vets just getting back on their feet and getting into the workforce. Some of them may or may not drive. There is access to SEPTA lines, and maybe perhaps they're even able to access other resources. But I just would say, and I've said this to other developments and other developers, so don't feel like I'm picking on you. Parking is a hot topic. It's going to be a hot topic for anybody that accesses that commercial space. Any of the individuals that live there that drive, it's going to be a hot topic for. And I think this could be a really great project if it's done well. And we really want to make a commitment to serving our vets and to affordable housing in Phoenixville. So we want to do that right. So I will just say, I will ask you, this is more my plea as a person, let's look at being good neighbors. We want you to be part of the community. We want these people to be part of our community, but we also want to be good neighbors. So I've said that to other developers. Think about going a little bit above and beyond what you're required, because our community takes care of those. We take care of each other. So just think about that. I know it's not required. It's more my human plea of, hey, let's all be good neighbors, and just think on the parking a little bit. I know we really want to help these vets, and maybe some kind of agreement that you guys could work out and maybe take the lead on and take the bulk of the brunt of could really be helpful to those of the few that may drive. So that's just a little bit of a statement. And then getting back to kind of the demographic that would be served, I think, again, this could be a really great project. And it sounds as though the key demographic would be a younger or middle-aged group that is looking to get back in the workforce, looking to maybe get rooted in a community before they move to their long-term rest of life plan as they're going through the progression of veteran services, which is great. And this HUD VASH is a voucher. So could you explain a little bit what that covers? What does the vet pay versus what does the voucher pay? And give us an understanding of that piece of the program.
Yeah, firstly, I totally respect and understand exactly what you're saying in reference to parking. Just the leasability of just even the ground floor space. Parking is a major concern, major issue, and being in the commercial real estate business, parking is obviously a big need, and you can't get specific tenants because of the lack of parking. So we understand, and we understand everyone that's on Church Street that also lives there, and parking is an issue, and we want to make them feel more comfortable with it. In terms of this particular building, the highest and best use in terms of making the least amount of parking is, I believe, our plan. If we were to convert this to a hall or a facility, a music facility or what have you, that it would have so many more parking spaces. And an office, the prior tenant that we bought the property from, their intention was to house it as an office building that would have had considerable amount of parking. So we feel that very confidently that we are making it the least amount of parking out of all the other options that are out there. And then not only that, we proactively have reached out to numerous parking lots and proactively believe that we can find a way to solve a problem, or at least address an issue to get and address some of this parking. And we would assumably try to either master lease or find a way to lease 5-10 spaces and then make them available for the tenants. So it's not as if we understand, and we want to make sure that we do understand, and we do want to be great neighbors. And I know somebody jumped on the call earlier. I live in Chester County. I have known numerous properties all throughout Philadelphia and the suburbs, and I'm not going anywhere. My kids are in school locally, and I love it, and I love Phoenixville. And this is what I wanted to be in Phoenixville for years, and we finally found an opportunity that made sense. So we're not going anywhere. And lastly, in terms of the building this building's an historic significant property. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to bring this building back to what it is and what it was. It has been sitting there vacant for a really long time. There's been nothing really going on. We've reached out to a lot of different advocacies, different places, different placement facilities, different places that are not only going to help the veterans down the road as well. So we're open to being very, very aggressive in terms of rental rates for the retail, to finding a really quality tenant that's going to add value to the neighborhood. We're talking about the upper floors, but we're also have ground floor space. We if we do this deal with the housing authority, I feel very confident that we can also do a great deal on the ground floor space by giving a lot of free rent, by being able to be very aggressive with the tenant improvement allowances, and finding a really good quality co-tenant for the neighborhood. And we understand the ice cream store next door, that's a pillar to the community. We want to add value to the block. We don't want to come into this community and not add extreme value. So I hope that helps address some of those comments. I don't know if I missed any. I'm sorry if I did.
Just if you could speak to like what the vet would be paying versus what the voucher would be paying, or give some specifics to that to get an understanding of that.
Yeah. So on the Housing Authority's website has the specifics to the voucher program in terms of Chester County has specific rates that they collect for studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, what have you. So the voucher program has what a landlord can charge a tenant is based on what it states in on the Housing Authority's website. So when a veteran comes in and he can afford to pay a certain amount, the voucher program compensates the remaining balance. So it might be a 60-40 split or a 75-25. It depends on the specific individual, but the Housing Authority helps compensate the remaining balance of what the individual can afford to pay, not to exceed what's on the website in terms of a price tag. Now, because of our units might be a little smaller, it might not just necessarily be the exact 1 bedroom price tag that the website might suggest. It might be a combination of like a studio or a 1 bedroom. So it's all price sensitive. It's all based on what's going on in Chester County and what they've allocated in terms of a rental rate. So we're not just going out and asking for higher rents. It's exactly what they've posted on their website.
And then as far as what's covered, like that 60-40 split, is that based on the need of the veteran, and the Housing Authority determines the percentage, based on the resources that individual seeking housing would need?
Yeah, I believe so. And I don't want to, please don't hold me to the 60-40 split or the exact split, but yes, individuals have individual needs and the Housing Authority addresses those with the individual. And then that's what brings up to parking, because parking is not one of them. So they don't pay for parking and what have you. So that would just make it more expensive for the individual.
And again, I'll just make my plea that you guys work something out to help out the vets and be good neighbors and maybe take that brunt off of them.
Will do.
Understood.
And on this project, having lived here for my whole life, the windows have never been uncovered. I think it was OPEC that caused that. Your intention is that you'll actually be replacing and restoring each individual glaze and bring that back to full beauty.
That's right, Mr. Wald. And that's actually the fact that they covered those windows up actually really preserved them, because what's under there is they're actually in fantastic shape. And they did a real justice by covering them up. For whatever reasons they did it back then, it certainly served a great purpose to preserve them. So there are a few that are exposed and have some damage. Those ones we will be replacing with windows in kind through Marvin Windows. They do a great job historically. And there's a few windows that are up high on Main Street facade that were previously covered up for some reason. We intend to open those up as well. So yes, we intend to definitely restore all the windows.
And as Gene mentioned at the beginning of this, we do have until April for the MPC regulated clock. Do we have other questions from council on this for the applicants tonight? It does sound like between staff and the applicants, there might be a few more things to iron out. I do think that this has been hugely helpful in learning more about the project than I previously knew. Any other questions?
I believe I made a motion, but I don't know that there was a second, or maybe there was a second.
There was. Motion carried.
Okay.
So there is a motion standing. What is council's pleasure?
Mr. President, would I be able to, as seconder, make a separate motion, or do we need to close this first before?
No,
you
can.
I can go ahead.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to table for further discussion in April.
Second.
We have a motion to table, seconded by Ms. Berkeley, seconded by Mr. Dalton. On motions to table, there is no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Gentlemen, I do appreciate the presentation tonight. We'll see you again in April at the April
Thank you.
Borough Council meeting.
Yes, thank
Really-
you for your time.
Really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, Jen will do the appropriate jockeying around. With that, I will now move over to Mr. Weiss with Historic Architectural Review Board. Mr. Weiss.
Let me get my mute off. Don't want to be talking while on mute. So thank you, Mr. President. A couple items coming out of HARB this week. The first is to consider the approval for a sign at 6 Gay Street. So I'll make a motion to consider the approval of the certificate of appropriateness for the sign request for 6 Gay Street as recommended in HARB 7-0 per our action memo dated March 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Weiss, seconded by Ms. Dugan. Questions on this application or motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Weiss.
Yes, the next one here. I'd like to make a motion to consider the approval of the certificate of appropriateness for exterior alteration and sign request for 101 Buchanan Street as recommended in HARB 7-0 per the action memo dated March 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Weiss, seconded by Ms. Dugan. Questions on this motion or application? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Weiss.
Yes, continuing on, I'd like to make a motion to consider the approval of the certificate of appropriateness for a sign request at 162 Bridge Street as recommended in HARB 7-0 per the action memo dated March 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Moore, or motion by Mr. Weiss, seconded by Mr. Moore. Questions on this motion or application? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Weiss.
Yes, and to bring it home, I'd like to make a final HARB motion to consider the approval of the certificate of appropriateness for exterior renovations and repairs requested for 257 Church Street as recommended in HARB 6-0 per the action memo dated March 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Weiss, seconded by Mr. Kirkner. Any questions on this application? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Weiss.
That's it for HARB this month. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moving along in our agenda tonight to item C, we have Regional Planning Committee, Mr. Kirkner.
Not much to report, Mr. President. Still working on incorporating West Pikeland Township into the Regional Planning Committee. And we've started, I'd say, nascent discussions about transferable development rights. Not something I really want to get into too deeply at this hour after what we've been through tonight. But the discussions are nascent, and I put it out there that one of the issues Phoenixville has had with that is what's in it for us. So it's probably not going to end up anywhere, but I feel obligated to let the municipal body know that this discussion is happening. That's all I have to report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. We'll move to Rec Board, Ms. Dugan.
Okay, first of all, I would like to mention that the Rec Board, what we're about to start doing is updating some comprehensive plan things and start figuring out what we would like to focus on for the use of the money from the fund going forward, just so we can give council a general idea of what the rec board's priorities are. As far as the programs go, the registration for summer camp opens March 8th. You should check the website for details. And the family night out contest for March is it's a Sunday holds a whole household dinner contest, and you're supposed to take a picture of you and your family eating dinner together and email it to dwinston@phoenixville.org, and the top 2 winners will receive a gift card from Communities That Care. And then the backyard gardening for complete beginners. If anybody is interested in learning how to garden, you have no idea where to begin. You can go an online class and also check the website for details for that. And that's all.
Thank you, Dana. With that, we will move on to Beautification Advisory Commission. I believe Ms. Berkeley is reporting out tonight.
Yes, I had the pleasure of joining them last night. So continuing their great work as we get back into doing some things in a socially distanced way. Planters, the campaign for planters is still there. So if you're interested in sponsoring a planter, that information is on our website. And they are starting to move forward with new box murals, utility box murals. A few did need to be replaced, so they're working on that as well. There was a little bit of a one that was a casualty. And then the landscaping projects. And one project that I'm very excited about is potential to have some pinwheels that will be part of beautification at our new playground in Reeves Park. So all great things coming out of BAC as we get into the spring and warmer weather.
Thank you, Beth. We'll actually move back to you for council action referred from committee with police personnel.
No action to report from police and personnel. We did vet in our committee, we did vet the applications that we discussed earlier this evening, and I would welcome anyone to come to our committee with an application if they are interested in any of the vacancies that are posted. We're very excited to have people get involved.
Thank you. And again, I believe you're going to report out Parks and Rec for Mr. Soto.
Yes, so we do have a resolution in front of us for open air. So I will make a motion to consider the resolution for 2021 open air program for downtown based on the results of the survey, and it was recommended in committee 3-0. I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of a discussion on this.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Berkeley, seconded by Mr. Weiss. Coming out of committee, I believe the recommended dates were April 16th through November 29th. In the packet, there's a large amount of information that we've gathered while we've discussed this with staff and residents and businesses of Bridge Street. We've even been lucky enough to acquire a set of data points that DVRPC put together a 12-page report helping to document how the closure last year actually benefited Bridge Street tremendously in terms of bringing folks out during the pandemic. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to review all the information. With that, what are the questions or comments on this motion
So,
or this program?
So yes, thanks, Mr. President. I think that, again, we got a great amount of feedback on the benefits to this. I, living downtown, certainly saw the benefits of that. There was some constructive things that were brought back by the survey, and I believe we've made adjustments. So maybe if we could just outline those, or if staff want to speak to those, because there were concerns that were brought up in the beginning during public participation. And I think we did work hard to take that feedback and consider it as we plan for this upcoming year.
You want me to take that, Jean? Sure. Okay, so we did 2 separate surveys. We did one for residents as well as one for businesses. So we got some great feedback from both. Just to give a little bit of the numbers of participants, our residential survey had, I'm pulling up, our resident survey had about over 600 responses. And I thought that that was really great because it showed actually the differences in where they lived in the wards, and it was a sprinkle of everywhere, which is kind of great to get that feedback from not only middle ward but all of the wards. We took some of the responses from the businesses. For example, when Jessica from the Chamber of Commerce mentioned last year when we did this, we did it Thursday through Sunday. This year we're recommending Friday afternoon through Sunday to get deliveries or trash pickup or anything along those lines, as best as possible. We also talked with residents from the perspective of parking. We tried to work with them as best as possible, and we'll continue to work with them to give a better option, or to, using the word of compromise, trying to figure out what the best, safest option is for them. We talked with businesses that are not along Bridge Street, but Main Street, Gay Street, Church Street, and what we can do to complement them during these closures. So we've reached out, we've heard feedback about signage, about more enforcement, or just presence down there. They're all things that we've taken into consideration. They're all things that we're preparing to do in one manner or another. The last year was a growing. So had some growing pains, but it was not the same thing from when we began. So we learned each weekend how to do it a little bit better or a little bit more efficient. So again, we work with all of our departments, and we're open to conversations about what can be made better. So that's kind of the feedback that we've gotten. We're always looking for more feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We're here as partners. We're here to help the community, business and resident. We don't want to, it's not one or the other, it's everyone. So that's everything that we've gotten, but we've also talking about taking back the other suggestions, because there were some really great things on signage and on how we get that information out. And we're taking that into consideration as well.
And I would just say, I know John and I, because it's the ward that we represent, we do get a lot of correspondence, and I would encourage that. So if a small issue comes up, or if an issue comes up where something happens during a weekend of a closure, please reach out to us, because again, like Kelly said, last year was a learning year, but every week or every situation that occurs, we do take that, and we do want to work with you and plan on working out any kind of tweaks.
Other questions from council on the motion? Mr. Moore.
Yes, a couple. First, can we speak to the concern raised by the person commenting during public, who's a resident above Sage Apartments? And I guess it's Church Alley, which I'm looking at the map and I guess it's closed. What accommodation do we make for, or are we going to be asking the people who live in that space to, park a block or more away? Help me understand exactly how that's dealt with.
Sure. So we've given a parking pass for the borough-owned parking lots, other than Main and Bridge Street, because it's closed when the road is closed. But we gave them the opportunity to park in, if I'm correct, any of them. But Jen can actually, comment a little bit more on that. With Church Alley being closed, we only close it for through traffic. Because there is a parking lot directly behind Iron Hill that we still allow patrons to go in and out of if they're able to park there privately, not from a public perspective. But so we actually discussed about keeping that open just to see if there's an ability of just more traffic flow and things like that. And again, we talked through from a safety perspective from pedestrians, and then also having the businesses that would set up, out to the line allowed. It would almost cattle shoot and almost be counterproductive. And what we're trying to do is spread out people that way. But again, all options are on the table to talk through that. We can see if it works, we can see if it doesn't work, and we can make that change for Church Alley. But again, we offered parking passes at no cost to those residents on top of Sage.
And I think as most of council remember, we're actually in the process of doing a public-private partnership with the parking lot that is directly behind the customer's bank building. So on weekends, that lot will be a Phoenixville Borough managed lot, which would be another spot that the handful of tenants of Sage would be able to utilize, if I understand. So there'll be more options shortly.
I guess that my larger question, I'm sorry, somebody else want to speak?
No, go ahead.
Then my larger question is, yeah, we don't know, and I was in on the, Parks and Rec's discussion about, or, the timing on how long we're going to do this. Because and there's, been expressions by plenty of people saying, wow, we should just always do this. This should be like the way we do things. And I would be concerned about backing into that as the result of the COVID response. Granted, everything that's said now says, even if we're above 70% inoculated and somebody starts saying, well, we're essentially at herd immunity. I realize that the state level of yellow to green, and if we leave green to normal, which I realize hasn't been developed yet, but I think I want to express a concern. We have this plan, and I do see that there is language in this resolution that allows us to change the direction. But I just would like to say that I think I am concerned about the non-restaurants on particularly the 200 block, who are, other types of stores, as well as Main Street block and Gay Street, that that aren't maybe not getting the same level of business that they thought they would because they don't have parking. Now, granted, Friday at 2 versus Thursday night, that's a big help. I just wonder if we have any way of, if we don't have to put it in the resolution, but just have an agreement here between all of us that we routinely look at what's happening in the world, what's happening in the state, what's happening in the county and the counties around us, as to where we stand at the pandemic, and not feel like we've told the businesses on the block, we're going to be closing right through the end of November. So I don't know what anybody else thinks of that.
Kelly, sure, if you want to address that.
I just wanted to add one comment. So this is not for just food businesses that can set up outside. So retail is allowed as well, just as a piece there. So we have non-food businesses that are allowed to set up in the 100 and 200 block. Last year we did extend the ability for Gay Street and Main Street businesses to set up in the Main and Bridge Street parking lot. We talked about some options of if they wanted space out almost in front of their space, but not closing the street, maybe in a parking spot. And we didn't get responses that were much like, yeah, let's do that. It was more of, we can't be in two places. We can't be in our business and then at the Main and Bridge Street parking lot, which is completely understandable. But again, we talked through with them. We're putting up more signage. We're doing those things. But I just wanted to make sure that it was known that it's not just food businesses that are able to extend out. And we had some. We had Threads extend out. We had Bittner's Table that does well their food. I guess I shouldn't say that, but we had a couple of different businesses that were that were able to extend out. That was not just food related.
So one point that I'm not sure if it made it into this resolution, which we could certainly add on the fly at the moment. Last year, we did have a clause that allowed the borough manager, public works director, mayor, and myself discretion to to alter on the fly if needed, or cancel if needed. I believe there. I forget the actual language. I don't think it made it into this resolution. Looking through it, but that would be one item that we could add into the resolution just to cover some concerns. I know during the discussions internally on this and with the businesses, there were concerns about if the borough, being able to not move forward if there's bad weather coming.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that we might want to add that clause back in, just to be able to say if a absolute hurricane is coming in town, we will make the call to not put the closure into place, and not do that through a council meeting, because there isn't time to do that.
Yeah, Jenna, that was a big piece of feedback I heard from businesses, was that, and residents, on a weekend when it poured all weekend, nobody could eat outside or shop outside. And then there was also that parking deterrent. So I think that would be something that we should consider.
And then just the other point that Mr. Moore brought up, one of the reasons in discussion that we had gone for the whole cycle all the way through the end of November as the proposed timeline was to really make it so that the businesses and restaurants, if they choose to make investments to rent tables and chairs and tents or umbrellas, that they have a runway that they know that they're working with to maximize their investment. So we were looking at it from a long view. We know that things are hopefully getting better by the fall, but with the feedback that we received from both businesses and restaurants, we felt the resolution in front of us covered a lot of the concerns. There's always going to be a couple missed check boxes, but in terms of what's in our control.
Item 9 says either the 29th of November or upon further action. So whichever shall first occur. I do agree with you. I think we do need that special authority to, cancel the closure based upon agreements between you, Gene, and the mayor, and the four of you who were responsible for it last year.
I think that's a reasonable addition to the resolution. Mr. Crack, you had your hand up before.
Sure. Basically, just for clarification, I would be adding in a clause that authorizes, by agreement of the mayor, president of council, or manager, to cancel temporary outdoor sales of food and merchandising, or until further action of Phoenixville Borough Council, whichever shall come first.
You need a motion on that language?
To add that to the current resolution, that would be appropriate. Right, Chuck?
That's correct. Yes. No. If you guys are ready to do it, sure. You want to include that in the motion.
What is council's pleasure in terms of amending the motion? Does everybody think that is a sound amendment to the resolution?
I make a motion
let's do it.
Yeah, I make a motion to make the amendment as laid out by the borough manager in terms of being able to suspend it.
Do we need to do that? I'll second that if we need to do that. I thought.
Yeah, it sounds like
I thought we could
just
just
like the amendment.
Add it into the resolution. So okay.
Cross our T's. So we'll vote on that amendment to the motion, Chuck. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Or do we? So it's two separate votes that we have to do now.
Well, no, you've amended the motion, so you only have one motion on the floor, John.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Just want to. It's harder to keep track on Zoom. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. Any further questions from council on this amended motion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. It looks like Miss Berkeley was bounced. She was. She'll rejoin us when she can. Okay. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to. Lost my place. We'll move on to policy committee. Mr. Dalton. Sorry.
No action from policies. We didn't meet this month. We should have stuff coming out this month.
Very good.
Or last month.
We will move on to infrastructure, technology, and transportation. Mr. Weiss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. No major updates, just two quick items. One, we wanted to make folks aware that yard toter pickup will be starting back up for the season in April, so look out for that. And just to alert folks that the next ITT meeting will be taking place 1 week from today at 7 p.m. on 3/16. Look forward to seeing anybody that's interested in the fun stuff we've got going on there next week. Beyond that, I'm good to go. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. With that, we move on to Ms. Dugan with finance.
All right. I am going
Ms.
to
Neer.
bundle 1 through 5, so hold on tight. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2020 prepaids dated 1/16/2021 to 2/13/2021 in the amount of $145,086.90. To approve the 2021 prepaids dated 1/16/2020 to 2/13/2021 in the amount of $573,148.13. To approve the 2020 prepaid credit card statement dated 1/16/2021 to 2/13/2021 in the amount of $546.40. To approve the 2021 prepaids credit card statement dated 1/16/2021 to 2/13/2021 in the amount of $54,314.30. And to approve the 2021 prepaids ACH dated 1/31/2021 in the amount of $31,177.43.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Mr. Moore. Nice bundling. Any questions on the prepaids and ACHs here? I believe Beth is not back in with us yet. I know she's having some IT issues. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I will also make a motion to approve the $22,000 in repairs to the Reservoir Dog Park, with $12,000 from Shade Tree removal services for the tree removal, and $10,000 for the fence repairs from fund balance to recreation, parks, maintenance, and supplies.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Mr. Moore. Questions on the dog park motion? I appreciate staff going through the process of getting these quotes and bids, because I think this is an important attribute in that park, and it'll be good to see everything back up and running. I think this was probably the first dog park in southeastern PA, so it's nice to have it back up and tuned in. Any other questions or comments?
I'll just offer the comment that I appreciate that we've decided to make the commitment. You know, it had been started as a volunteer thing. Volunteers dwindled away, rather than just to abandon it because of the popularity of dogs. I think if we can make it, get it back into shape, we can begin making people aware that it's there, and that would make it a more popular, usable place. I know that I've spoken to some people who been there once and didn't want to go back because it was the condition it was in. So
the Doriche did us no favors last summer. So
yes, that too.
I know there's quite a bit of tree work that they'll be taking care of to repair. So I believe Ms. Berkeley has rejoined us. Is that right, Beth?
I am here. I am having a little bit of technical difficulty, but I can hear you guys. If you can hear me, I can still vote.
We can hear you. I just want to make sure you were there. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Dugan.
And finally, in order to open the discussion, which I'm sure will be a while, I will make a motion to approve the installation of a disc golf course at Reservoir Park with a not to exceed amount of $15,000 from the Parks Capital Fund.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Dugan, seconded by Mr. Moore. Questions on this motion?
So we did hear a lot of public comment and a lot of concern. And I do think there are several things that we do plan to address that were brought up. I think in general, given our last vote on, looking at improving the dog park, we recognize that that area and that park, it does need attention and does need to be finessed, and it needs a facelift, and we do have plans on addressing some of those things and looking at the community garden as well as the pavilion. We do also are anticipating and planning that the new community center will be out there, and I think that parking will be addressed both as we improve where the dog park is and that back area behind there where there is parking. We plan to improve that. And then also the parking at the community center will be very accessible to that area. So people will be able to park there and walk over and enjoy the park. So I just kind of wanted to address those points that were brought up, and anything else that anyone else that's been more intimately involved in the details of this wanted to provide, because I do hear the concerns of the residents. I understand, but I do think if we could explain more of what's being planned and what precautions will be taken to consider the neighbors, I think that would be helpful, because I do think that cleaning up that park is really important, and utilizing it in the best way possible for all of the community, including the neighbors, would be important.
I will offer that I heard some concerns by the direct neighbors about security and criminal behavior there. Now, I don't know whether that's because of its isolation. I don't know whether the police department, whether our police department and whether the county could consider that an area that needs work in terms of addressing criminal behavior. Because there's a concern by the neighbors that we're going to be bringing people in, that we're going to be increasing traffic to that place. There's some argument that by increasing traffic, you could actually theoretically, legitimate traffic, you would reduce illegitimate traffic. At nighttime, I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't know enough about policing to be able to have an opinion upon that one way or the other, and I would be interested in that. Looking at the map of the proposed course, and I realize that that's an initial map, I think we need to ask the people who we're working with, volunteers, who are proposing a design on this course, to rethink keeping it to 18 holes, but to rethink the impact on how they've designed the play, to perhaps reduce the South Street impact if we're going to proceed with this.
I did, and again, I definitely hear the neighbors. I don't want anyone to be nuisanced by this. The idea is to enhance the community and also to improve the park so that there is, to your point, Brian, people are utilizing it in the right way. And I do think that if we make the enhancements that we want to, we will accomplish that. So I definitely want to be planful that we do take security measures to protect the neighbors. I guess where I want to understand how that's happening is I have gotten to do a field trip down there. I have done a complete walkthrough and walked from where the community center is up through where like the little playground is and the ball court is, through the community garden, which yes, does need attention. I certainly witnessed that. The pavilion is outdated, and there's a lot of space that could be better utilized, and the dog park definitely needs to be improved. And again, the rain and things like that did not help last year. So I guess where I want to understand is how it is getting into people's yards and how we can, what can we do to avoid that? Because I'm not visualizing it from my walkthrough. And I certainly don't want neighbors to deal with discs in their yard, but I also think that again, there's got to be some common ground we can come to, because I think this could be really great when done right.
I'm happy to speak on part of that, as I know that as we've continued to discuss the course layout, the plans that are available on the borough website are very preliminary. So the idea is that there's no point in coming up with final plans until something is fully approved. And so the plans that are presented on the website are a preliminary set, and very adjustable. So these, one of the things that was desirable about the installation of this is much like when playing ball golf, the tee and the basket can actually be easily moved and redesigned as needed. So the permanence of the structure is actually easy to adjust and make best use of in the location. So I know specifically in relation to the South Street residents, the approach of that second, I think it's the second proposed hole, was already modified in the most recent proposed plan that the team that's designing it has worked on. So it would actually take the disc towards the center of the field. So there would not be it wouldn't be shooting to, it wouldn't be aligning with the right side of the side there, or the north side of the property. So it would actually be using more of the center of the Dayton Street field. And then again, these are preliminary ideas. They'll be looking to map out and make the best course of it, because the players don't want to be causing any nuisance or losing their discs either. This is something that, although this is a very low cost to entry sport, you still don't want to lose your equipment. So the players that we've spoken with and the clubs that we've spoken with around the region, the municipalities have echoed those statements that it's brought in a very respectful clientele that wants to keep the park looking pristine and volunteering to do cleanups. I know there's quite a bit of stuff to repair and improve in this park, and with the new location of the rec center, this now becomes a more highlighted park area for all of the borough. I think Beth, will come back to you. Mr. Weiss was actually next.
Yeah, and then thanks. I'll be really quick, but I think just by way of a reality check, right? Like, I cannot imagine a circumstance where bringing disc golf into a park could increase criminal activity. So I just want to put that, like, if there is criminal activity in the park, that's a separate thing. But I cannot in any way imagine this exacerbating that problem. I also think, just by way of a reality check, having a disc thrown into your yard is less than ideal, but we're not proposing putting in like an archery range, right? No one's in danger from a disc being thrown into the yard. So I hear these concerns, but I also want to just couch them in reality and actual impact. For my part, I think it's a net good. It's making more use out of, or it's getting more use out of a park. It's providing more amenities to folks in the community, and even more so the folks closer to the community. And I think with the development that we have going on up there in terms of the community center, it makes sense as like a total package. So I'm fully behind this, and just wanted to put out those kind of sentiments.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. We'll go to Ms. Dugan.
Okay, I started out, as everybody knows, I actually asked for the survey because I started out pretty against this. And now I saw the results of that survey were like 90%. And that's kind of hard to fight against. I saw the petition of the neighbors in the North Ward, and that's kind of where I expected the survey to reflect, but it kind of didn't. So I'm so up in the air about this, but I understand the concerns with the stray frisbees. It worries me that we're going to end up having to put up nets like they do around a golf course, so it doesn't go on the road or something like that. And that, that concerns me, that it's going to be a problem. And there was a planned softball field in the area, but my fears of that were allayed because it sounds like these things would be easily relocated if there was a situation that we would need to. It wouldn't be like super permanent. So I don't know why we're in such a huge hurry to do this, to be honest, because I feel like there's a lot of disagreement on a lot of stuff. But I feel like, there's good points on both sides, and I don't know if the petition goes against the survey. So I'm having a hard time with this.
So just to speak to the one point, one of the reasons why we had, why this came up as something that we can do quickly is just that it's actually a very COVID friendly, physically distanced activity that you can do. It's providing actual recreation that we can promote, unlike some of our other activities where basketball was something that at the beginning of this pandemic we had to dispromote. So this was something that we saw as something that can be installed. We have a number of Eagle Scout groups as well as local volunteers that have offered to do the labor. So a quick turnaround product was attractive considering the environment that we've all been in the last year. And then as we mentioned before, this was something that was in the master plan for this park. So was the softball field and the multi-use field, but this is something in the master plan that I think it's a good quick deliverable that we can help provide some more levels of recreation. There was the one comment earlier today by the one person helping design it that mentioned that he's more than happy to meet with the homeowners to help alleviate any of the concerns and to design it harmoniously.
So I guess I have a point
Ms.
of order
Berkeley.
question. Yeah, I guess I have a point of order question. Right now, what we're voting on is to allocate funds towards the development of this project. It's not necessarily approving the design. So would it help to maybe amend the motion to then make that contingent on, we're going to come back and talk about that, make it contingent that we do consult with the neighbors? I don't know, because I do feel as though this is a great project. I understand concerns and I want to be considerate of that, but I also think that we do need to improve this park. So right now we're voting on allocating the money. We're not saying it has to be designed in a certain way. So those adjustments can be made as we go through the process, correct?
I think the intention
According
on
to the
the
motion, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Dana.
I was just going to say, according to the motion, it was approve the installation. So if you wanted to change that, you would actually have to change that.
And then since Melissa is our Parks and Rec director, any actual installation and final design, I think the intent was that she would, we would work the final design through our Parks and Rec director.
Okay.
Mr. Kirkner. I'm not hearing audio, Rich. Is anybody else, or is that just me?
I'm not hearing him either.
I don't know.
Yeah, nor here.
Did anybody? We'll come back to Rich. Did anybody else have any? We'll see if he unfreezes here in a second. Rich, can you? No, we're still not getting audio, Rich. We'll see if you can work that out. Other questions or comments on the motion from council?
No, I mean, I think to your point, Mr. Ewald, Melissa does a great job. One of the developers working on the project offered to meet with the community members. So as long as those things are in place, I think that this is a really solid project.
Let's see. We'll try one more time with Rich, unless he's just given up.
I'm concerned about us going forward without hearing from him.
I got to be totally honest with you, because this is his ward and
Yeah.
he's the only representative from there tonight. So that's where all of the upset people came from.
Rich, if you could hear us, you could try chatting in Zoom, and someone could read that aloud if we really can't get your audio working.
Or go out and come back in, and then we can re-promote you. Sometimes it just happens with audio.
Yeah, when you get frozen, you get frozen. So if you go back out and come back in.
We don't usually go this late on a Zoom call for Borough Council, so we're just.
The gremlins are out.
So we'll see if he comes back.
Zoom is rising against us for overuse.
Yeah, I was wondering with regard to Reservoir Park, and the concerns about the pavilion, is there in long-term plans any in the Parks and Recreation budgets or wish lists?
I mean, I'll just speak to that momentarily.
Revitalization of that.
Well, we wait for Rich here. I mean, I've been to the pavilion a couple times each weekend. It's not. I mean, there's a newer roof. It has power. It has benches and picnic tables. I'm not sure what features would need to be updated.
Is there any way, we don't really have a way of monitoring park usage? That's too difficult, you know. It's kind of seated at your pants, right?
Well, I mean, is it the typical like dawn to dusk? And, you know, I do know from ride-alongs, police do drive through there. It could just be a conversation of increasing that frequency as able.
Brian, to your question, there are systems that we can use that DVRPC and other townships around us actually use trip counters where it does measure the amount of usage of people going in and out. I'm not sure if that would work on this setup. Rich, do you want to try turning off your earbuds and seeing if give that a try maybe? Sometimes it's just an earbud dying.
Mr. Ewald,
yes, Peter, you're our IT guy, right?
the resident IT person. Rich, if you also may try first making sure you know the unmute button in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there's a arrow that points upward. If you try clicking on that arrow, just make sure that the select a microphone and select a speaker are either on your headset or on your audio microphone. Sometimes that gets a little wonky.
Well, he works on that.
Okay.
One of the, Rich, you're there.
There it is. Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
No,
Wow.
no problem.
Okay. All right. I just forgot everything I was going to say. Yeah. No, in the finance meeting, I voted against this because I said I wanted to hear from the neighbors, and I think we certainly heard from the neighbors tonight. I would think going forward that there would be some kind of outreach to the neighbors. Todd Palmer talked about having a meeting with them, and I think that would be a good idea if that could happen. There are concerns, legitimate concerns, the neighbors mentioned up there. That and I think this is something we could put on our signage, that any dogs must be on the leash, and no alcoholic beverages in the park. But those are things that can be worked out. I don't think we need to put them in a motion per se. I do think that let me see. There are the concern about discs in the yards is legitimate because some of the people up there have dogs. And if there's a dog in the yard, you can't go in that yard, whether it's climbing a fence or, you know, if it's an electronic fence, you can't go in that yard. So that is a nuisance. That said, if this gets laid out right, I don't know how much of a concern that would be. Ideally, that would never happen, but I live next to a soccer field here, and a couple times a year, a ball flies into my yard, believe it or not. And I mean, it's not a big deal. I just say to those guys, look, you just come in and get the soccer ball. You know, don't worry about it. It doesn't happen that often. So, but I don't know. This is something new, but it's a legitimate concern that we need to think about. So, but again, I think that's the kind of thing that can be worked out before we do this. I do think that if we can monetize this somehow, it could potentially generate funds to make other park improvements up there, like maybe take care of that community garden, do some improvements to that.
Wasn't that originally part of the plan that it was going to generate? I've talked to Melissa a bunch of times. This was like, there are tournaments that will pay for this.
Right. Right.
And,
But
well,
I
and that's
don't
up
know.
to, that would be up to us to allow that. It's that's a option, not a requirement.
Right. I do think that having activity up there, this kind of activity would flush out some of the nefarious activity that we've heard about. So I do think I do see that as a benefit. As far as parking goes, there is a lot of parking along Fillmore Street that if there's no parking in the small lot behind the reservoir up there, there's a lot of parking on Fillmore Street that I think people would use before they go into the Ledges neighborhood and on South Street and down on Dayton Street, because it's a lot closer. We know everybody likes to park close to where they want to go. So I really think there's enough parking now on Fillmore Street to handle that. I'm not so sure night there was a mention of doing this at night, which is something they do in Kerr Park in Downingtown, which Kerr Park in Downingtown is not near any homes. So there's a different dynamic there than there is at this park.
Yeah, but I
up
think
here.
our parks actually close, and I don't think you're supposed to be there after a certain time anyway, so.
That's another thing, but and I just think back to what Beth said earlier about being good neighbors. I mean, I would hope that I would think that what I'm seeing of the people who would be using this, it seems to me that they would be somewhat conscientious about the impact that they would have on the neighborhood. So I think that's an important thing. And there was a question about who maintains it, but it seems like this would be, the grass cutting would still be done by the borough. And apparently volunteers would be doing some work there as well. So I hope I addressed everything, but I think for me going forward, the key thing is that there's engagement with the neighbors up there, and that there's a lot of awareness about the potential impact that this could have, especially on neighboring properties. So
are we going to adjust this we're going to approve the money and not the actual putting it in, or like, are we just going with this? I don't know, how we're going forward now, because we have a plan, but the motion I made was for installing it.
Sure, and sort of bouncing back to one of your previous comments, one of the reasons to move forward with this is that there's a significant delivery time on the actual product. So we're at a 4 or 6 week window, most likely on any freight anywhere in the country right now. So that part of the reason to move forward with the installation and purchasing was to get the ball rolling, and then again to work with Melissa and the department and the neighbors to get the final bit keyed in. So I think
and it sounds like there's flexibility post installation, right? Like if we set it up and it's not right, we can change it.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was told. I was told that these are easy to change around if we don't like the layout or something doesn't work or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And plenty of other courses in the area have adjustable tees where they do move the baskets on a regular basis to keep the variety up. So any other questions?
Oh, and one other
Yes.
quick question. About the parking thing. I thought that most people would just park over at Friendship because that's eventually where the parking is going to be. So I can't imagine the parking be that
Yeah, there'll be
difficult.
100 spots at the rec center, so they'll.
So like
there'll
the
be room.
parking,
there's
you
no
know,
parking there now.
unusually, I'm like the one that gets upset about the parking issue, but this doesn't scare me about parking at all.
Well,
So,
there's no parking there now.
Right, until December, but.
Right. But there is parking on Fillmore Street.
And Franklin, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
you know, there's nearby parking. Any other questions
all
or
my
comments?
issues, and parking was never one of them.
Okay. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Wow. I didn't
Miss
expect
Dugan.
that. That's all I have.
And with that, this might be the longest meeting we've had in 5
Ever.
years. Yeah,
Definitely.
it seems
in the
longer on
year.
Zoom. We will move into the second round of public participation. As we stated at the beginning of the night, any members of the public wishing to make public participation comments, please raise your hand in the chat feature or in the bottom of your screen. Jen, staff will then call on you, and you will be able to unmic and speak to council. We'll give this a few moments. I know there is a delay. I always try to account for between us speaking and actual transmission. So,
Mr. Weaver, I'm going to turn on your microphone, sir.
Hi, thank you all for your time. I know this is one of your longer meetings. Just a comment about the veterans housing. Thinking through that, I know there's a few variances for that, and just thinking about, everyone wants to help the veterans. It's a positive project. It's a great town to bring them into. I would just encourage everyone to take a look at the space of the building and the amount of revenue generating space versus public space for the actual veterans, and thinking through, what is the motivation for this particular project? I mean, in general, the 23 apartments are roughly $303,000 per year, plus commercial space on the bottom. So I'm thinking through that, what resources should be provided to the veterans as part of this project. I mean, we wouldn't want to see a whole bunch of people being dumped onto the street without adequate services. So I'm curious about the Veterans Association, and do they normally bring in sorts of help to help them transition to their own homes at some point? So it'd be interesting to hear more about that from the developers.
thank you. I know staff will be communicating some further questions to the developers before our next meeting in April on this project. So they'll be continuing to work through that project. Anyone else tonight, Ms. Logan?
Mr. Ewald, at this time, we do not see any additional raised hands.
Okay. We will move to close this round of public participation. Item 15 on tonight's agenda, staff reports. In your packet, all of the staff reports are made available. If there's any questions on any of the staff reports, typically there aren't. Mr. Crack, Mr. Garner, do we have any need for executive session tonight?
No, sir.
We don't have for tonight, but I'll be communicating with all of council about an executive session probably in the next day or so. We do need to do one. Certainly, it's just not good to tie one to this type of meeting and this type of environment. So I'll come up with some ideas and then send out some information to everybody about what we may be able to do. But we do need an executive session. We got a couple of things that are coming up that requires your attention. So I'll get an email out to you all shortly.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Chuck. With that, there's nothing left on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Berkeley, second by Mr. Weiss. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.